opened his eyes blankly, and looked around in a daze, but before he woke up, suddenly the mountain shook, as if an earthquake. Frightened Chen Shang was frightened, and he stood up quickly. But when he got up, he found something was wrong, because he found that the ground was far away from him. What's the situation? Why is the ground so far away from me? No, it's not that the ground is far away from me, it seems that I am getting higher. In a daze, Chen Shang reacted instantly. It was not that the ground was far away from him, but that he was taller and his body became taller. Looking at the ground, he naturally felt far away from him. He quickly reached out and saw a different pair of eyes. His large palms in the past are at least twice as large as those in the past. Let me go. Whose hand is this and why is it so big? Chen Shang looked dumbfounded, but he shook his palms several times, only to find that the huge palm was twisting with his heart, obviously his own hand, and then he looked up and down at his whole body again. 1 minute later, Chen Shang came to a conclusion that he had to accept. It seemed that he was not the original self, but had become another person, but he remembered all his previous things, that is to say, he passed through. And it's still a soul-piercing. As for who this person is crossing over, he doesn't know. However, through observation, he was surprised to find that his current height is at least 2 meters, which is more than 1 meter taller than he used to be, like a giant. And his whole body is muscular, comparable to the boxing champion in his previous life, and he has a simple suit. Wearing his red jacket, what made him even more weird was that a flower was tattooed on his chest and arms. Who am I becoming? Although he was able to understand his physical condition for a while and felt the explosive power in his body, he was still at a loss. Why didn't he inherit the memory of this body after this crossing? And the layout of this room is completely different from the country he used to live in. Different. Some are similar to Europe and the United States, and some are similar to the East China. While he was still in a daze, the whole ground was shaking again, making him about to fall when he was in a trance, but at this moment, his body actually made a very natural movement, and then stabilized his body. Stood firmly on the ground. Chen Shang can be sure that if he was replaced by the previous one, he would definitely not be able to do this, but now this body can easily do it. He can feel that his current body is a bit stronger than the previous one. 10 times. From the physical point of view, no matter what aspect has been strengthened, is this good or bad? If you know that your body has become stronger, you will definitely be extremely happy, but the problem is that the current situation is different, the body has changed too much, and it must have been traversed. If you haven't figured out where, you will still be unable to settle down. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Suddenly an urgent voice came from outside the door. Accompanied by a violent knock on the door, he hesitated for a while, then walked to the door and opened the door. What he saw was a soldier in a white marine suit with a face full of eagerness. You. Chen Shang was about to speak, but the soldier eagerly called out first. Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Why are you still in the room? It has fallen out outside, don't you feel it? Chen Shang remained silent. He didn't know his identity now. In order to prevent exposure, he didn't plan to talk more. Moreover, judging from the soldier's words and dress, he had already reached some conclusions. First of all, the body that he traversed seemed to be called Sakazuki, and it was also a vice admiral. When he heard the name, he felt very familiar, but he did not think about it in depth, but continued to analyze it. Then this was in front of him. A person should be a soldier, but also his own subordinate. Look at his dress, white uniform, very similar to marine uniform. After thinking for a while, Chen Shang asked tentatively, "What's wrong outside?" Obviously, the soldier did not notice the strangeness of his immediate boss, and quickly reported, "Sakazuki Vice Admiral, don't you know? It's the big pirate of New World, the pirate admiral of the Flying Pirate Group, and the Golden Lion is coming. Sengoku Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral have already gone to fight. Marineford has been destroyed a lot. The Marshal asked all the generals in Marineford to assemble immediately and head to Bayhead to face the flying pirates." What? The soldier spoke very quickly, but Chen Shang didn't miss a single sentence, but it was because he heard clearly that he was shocked. Those familiar names of people and places were all in his memory. The anime that was very popular in the previous life is similar. Flying Pirates, Golden Lion, Sengoku, Garp, Marineford. Jonko wanted to yell up to the sky, but he stopped it alive. Although there was no change on the surface, his heart was as shocking as it was overwhelming. It turns out that this is the world of One Piece, and Sakazuki, isn't this the name of Marine Admiral, the future Marine Marshal Red Dog? Doesn't that mean that I have become a Red Dog through crossing? Pooh, I am Akainu now, what Red Dog? After figuring out his identity, Chen Shang was even more unbelievable. Isn't One Piece a manga? How could it be real? What's even more incredible? He has been scolded countless times by all the Jaime, and he can't wait to pull it out. Killed the villain Akainu hundreds of times. This world is really crazy. Can you let me go through it again and make me Aokiji? How come I become Akainu? In his heart, he was also a person who read a lot of novels in his previous life. Why did the protagonist not cross into Luffy or cross into Ace, and no matter how bad he crossed into Whitebeard, it would be nice to get here, he actually became a man. Detestable Akainu. Who is Akainu? An extremist who has carried out justice to the absolute value, cannot tolerate a grain of sand in his eyes, does not allow a trace of evil to exist, and can even eliminate his colleagues and ordinary people without hesitation in order to eradicate pirates. Not only was he cruel to the enemy, but also ruthless to his own people, he was a true iron-blooded soldier. It's not all bad. Akainu is also one of the strong men standing on the pinnacle of the pirate world, and later became Marshal Marine, the world's top power figure. Compared with me, it is completely different. In other words, if I become Akainu, I can be considered as one step to the sky. Looking back on my own life in the past 2 decades, and comparing my current identities, Sakazuki and Admiral of Headquarters. Although he has only found out his identity, he is already very clear that he must have passed through, and it is estimated that it is impossible to change back to his original identity. He is now Sakazuki, Admiral, Akainu, the famous future of pirate world. Thinking that he had changed from one person to another in a good manner, Chen Shang accepted it, but he was still a little bit uncomfortable and shocked, but fortunately, he became Sakazuki, who is already Vice Admiral, the headquarters of Marine, and will be in Marine in the future. The high levels of the People's Republic of China no longer have to run around for life as they did in the past, but they are unable to settle down. In the past, he was just a very ordinary young man in China. He had parents and brothers and sisters, so he was always poor when he was a child. His parents were tired for decades and raised him as an adult. Although he did not earn interest, he was able to earn money to support himself. NS. But in the city, he has been very tired from the hard work day by day. Now he suddenly becomes Sakazuki, and he is faintly excited, as if the shackles in his heart have been untied, and the whole person is extremely happy. And freedom. The only regret is that he has not had time to honor his parents. Fortunately, he has several brothers and sisters, and each of them is more promising than him, so he is not worried that his parents will have a bad life in his later years. From now on, I will put aside my previous identity and really become Sakazuki? He was faintly uneasy and expectant, and his mood was very complicated. Yes, I am Sakazuki now, Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Sakazuki was meditating, and an urgent cry came from his ear. He was very upset when his thoughts were interrupted. He suddenly turned his head and glanced at the marine soldier very upset. Sakazuki was originally a powerful figure in Marine, and he treated his subordinates very harshly. So even if Sakazuki glanced uncomfortably, the Marine still felt the tremendous pressure, and fear grew spontaneously. Fear score from Lucas Benioff, +155. What? With another soft whisper, Sakazuki was shocked to find that a strange reminder suddenly appeared in his mind. There was no warning, and the sudden reminder made him a little stunned. Fear score from Lucas Benioff, +226. At this moment, an interface suddenly appeared in Sakazuki's mind. An interface somewhat similar to the computer screen interface, but there are only 3 options on the interface: shop, lottery, revenue and expenditure. Looking at these 3 options, Sakazuki curiously opened the store among the 3 options, and suddenly a list appeared, but only one item in the list was lit, and the rest were dark and hazy. Can't see anything. The only item that was on was the only item that could be purchased, but this item surprised Sakazuki very much. Haki fruit. The price is 1,000. Then Sakazuki saw a line of small print at the bottom of the store, and it showed the balance, 381. Seeing this number, Sakazuki couldn't help but remember the prompt that just popped up in his mind. What kind of fear value? 155 plus 226, isn't it 381? In other words, what kind of inexplicable fear value is the currency for purchasing items in the store? Just thinking about it, suddenly I received the fear value again. Fear score from Lucas Benioff, +82. Sure enough, the balance at the bottom of the store suddenly became 463, which was clearly an increase of 82. Lucas Benioff, is this the guy in front of you? Sakazuki looked weirdly at the sea soldier standing in front of him nervously. At this moment, the man didn't dare to look up. He kept his head down and didn't dare to look at him, but even so. Fear from Lucas Benioff, +18, +12, +2. Now Sakazuki can be regarded as completely understanding that the currency of the system is the fear value, and the seaman named Lucas Benioff in front of him should have been scared by him just now, so he provided him with the fear value. If that's the case, don't you have to continue to scare people in the future? Let others fear, then you can receive the fear value? Go scary when it's okay. What rhythm is this? Sakazuki is really a little confused. He originally thought that becoming Akainu would be equivalent to reaching the sky in one step, but now a system-like existence similar to the system that often appears in previous novels has appeared again. This is to make him ascend to the sky. High tempo? Akainu itself is Marine Admiral in the world of One Piece, the top character, even though he has not inherited the memory and experience of the other party, but his strength and fruit are still there. As long as he exercises well in the future and restores to the previous state of Akainu, the problem should not be the problem. Too big. Now that there is a similar system, his potential is undoubtedly upgraded to a higher level, and it is definitely greater than the potential of Akainu in the original book. When Sakazuki was very pleasantly surprised, he suddenly felt the ground shaking again, and it was shaking more violently than before. Still fighting outside? Sengoku Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral haven't taken down the Golden Lion yet? Judging from this movement, the fighting was definitely very intense, because this was a place to rest in the rear. The place where they were fighting was at the head of the bay, but even if they were so far apart, they could still feel the movement. It is conceivable how fierce the battle was. But Sakazuki didn't have the slightest worry, because he knew very well that even though Golden Lion is strong, but can't get a lot of waves here, it should be taken together by Garp and Sengoku soon. But he didn't know that it was what he imagined, and the real battle was not as good as he thought. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, Golden Lion's flying pirates are very powerful, especially Golden Lion. Sengoku Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral have been fighting for so long before they have taken him. His destructive power is really too strong. Fighting from outside the bay to the inside of the bay caused great damage. Furthermore, the flying pirates under his command is also very strong. As long as the Marines in the base are all gathered to fight the flying pirates, Marshal Air wants you to pass as soon as possible. Forgetting the fear, the Marine soldier named Lucas Benioff quickly reported to Sakazuki. Upon hearing this, Sakazuki was shocked. He remembered that when he watched the pirate anime, it was obviously the Golden Lion who arrogantly ran to the naval headquarters to make a fuss. How come it has become the entire flying pirates group now? It's not right. But soon he realized that animation is an animation after all, and now it is reality, and the current situation is more in line with reality. In the original book, it is said that Golden Lion destroyed nearly half of the naval headquarters base, but if only Golden Lion alone, no matter how strong he is, it is impossible to cause such a big damage. After all, the current naval headquarters can be described as there are so many talents. How could he be beaten like that by himself, and replaced by the entire flying pirate group? It's almost the same. Go and take a look. To be honest, in fact, Sakazuki's heart is still a little weak. After all, he is not the original Akainu. He has inherited Akainu's skills. He doesn't know now, because he has no time to experiment. But now the boss's orders are all down. If he doesn't pass it, he can't justify it. Although he doesn't know what Akainu was like before, he is sure of one thing, that is, Akainu hates pirates. Now Golden Lion, they are all hitting the door, and if he doesn't respond, it will definitely make life suspicious. Before taking a closer look at the specific situation of the system interface in his mind, Sakazuki, under the leadership of Marine soldiers, quickly headed towards Wantu, where the naval headquarters resisted the flying pirates, and it was bound to prevent Golden Lion from moving forward. Otherwise, it will definitely have a great impact on Marineford. When Sakazuki came to the battlefield in Wantu, he was stunned by the chaos in front of him. Above the bay head, countless soldiers in white Marine uniforms were fighting with a group of chaotically dressed people. He just glanced at it and saw many people falling down covered in blood. Unseen blood. Is this the pirate group of Golden Lion? Sakazuki muttered to himself. His words were heard by the Marine soldier Lucas Benioff, who brought him over. He suddenly said, "Sakazuki Vice Admiral, the flying pirates are different from what you saw before. Golden Lion and Roger fought. Later, his subordinates lost 70% to 80%. This group of pirates was only recently assembled. Although there are many people, they are not as good as before." Sakazuki just remembered at this time that Akainu had seen the battle between Golden Lion and Roger following naval headquarters, and knew something about Golden Lion. Fortunately, he didn't say much, otherwise he would be misunderstood if he just said something wrong. A group of dirty pirates who despise justice, they must all be buried here today. This is the attitude that Akainu should have. Sure enough, Lucas Benioff heard Sakazuki's roar and did not show any surprise. Instead, he looked at Akainu in admiration and said, "Yes, Sakazuki Vice Admiral, these pirates shouldn't be afraid at all if they act. This guy worships me." Sakazuki discovered that this seaman actually worshipped him, but thinking about Akainu's identity and his strength, it's normal for someone to worship him, but whoever wants you to worship me, I want you to fear me, in his heart roared. Even though he has just discovered the existence of this similar system, Sakazuki has clearly realized the importance of the fear value. The more the fear value, the more benefits he can get, although he still does not know the 3 options. Specific role, but no matter what the role is, the fear value as a currency is the most important. Looking at the battle between Marine and the pirates, he found that Marine still occupies a favorable position. After all, this is Naval Headquarters, Marine's base camp. Turning his head and looking at it, the battlefield was the fiercest and most eye-catching was the battle in the air. I saw a huge pirate battleship floating in the sky at the head of the bay. On the battleship, even if it was far away, 3 figures could be seen colliding and attacking at extremely fast speeds. 2 of them are wearing marine white casual clothes, and the other is full of blonde hair. Needless to think about it, this is the pirate admiral of the Flying Pirates, Golden Lion, one of the 3 legendary pirates of New World, and one with Roger, the Pirate King. The big pirate fighting for the hegemony of the sea. To be able to carry Garp Vice Admiral and Sengoku Admiral alone, this Golden Lion is indeed very powerful, but I believe it will not be long before Golden Lion will be defeated by 2 adults. The Marines beside Sakazuki spoke excitedly, revealing their respect, admiration and confidence in Garp and Sengoku. Sakazuki looked at this passionate Marine soldier speechlessly. Only then did he realize that this Marine soldier named Lucas Benioff was actually a Marine lieutenant colonel, not too big or too young, but also a school-level officer. Yes, Golden Lion's defeat is a foregone conclusion, as long as... Sakazuki couldn't help but said the answer, but suddenly his face changed, and he suddenly pushed away the Marines beside him, and at the same time he quickly flashed to the other side. At this time, a burly figure passed through where they were just standing, and landed not far away. Sakazuki. An angry roar sounded, and Sakazuki looked up and saw that he was a burly man about 2 meters tall, holding a huge mace in both hands, and a burn on the left half of his face. At this time, he was looking at himself with a sullen face. This guy seems to hate me. Although he didn't know the pirate, since this person called his name and attacked him, now he looked at him fiercely, indicating that there must be enmity between them. Who are you? Sakazuki asked naturally. As soon as these words came out, the burly man on the other side's expression became stagnant, and then he stared at Sakazuki even more angrily. You don't even remember me? Sakazuki said with a deep look. I don't know how many trash pirates like you have killed. If everyone who died in my hands remembers, wouldn't I be exhausted? You. The strong man was trembling with anger. At this time, Marine Lucas whispered to Sakazuki. Sakazuki Admiral. This guy is a more famous pirate in New World, nicknamed a Grizzly Bear. This guy was defeated by you before, and the scar on his face was left by you. Down. Oh, I got it. Now Sakazuki understood why this strong man would stare at him so fiercely. It turned out that there was such a feast between them. Since it was a defeated man, he would naturally not worry about it. Last time you escaped by a fluke, you still didn't learn your lesson, so you dare to come here to die? The pirate called Grumpy Bear roared angrily. Sakazuki, last time you only took advantage of Logia Devil Fruit, so you defeated me. Now I have learned haki. This time the damn person is you. Sakazuki's eyes jumped when he heard this. He thought before that even if he didn't inherit Akainu's memory, he could ignore the attack by relying on the ability of Lava Fruit, but he didn't expect this guy to learn haki, which would be troublesome. Lousy has become Akainu in one step at any rate. In the future, a man who will become Martial Marine, how could he be frightened by an unknown little pirate? With his eyes condensed, a breathtaking might erupted from his body, and he saw that his hands suddenly turned into hot lava, and they fell to the ground ticking. Is this the power of Lava Fruit? Looking down at his hands, Sakazuki's heart was shocked. Although he knew that he had become Akainu and would surely gain the ability of Lava Fruit, he didn't expect to be able to display it so soon, especially when he saw his hands. Magma, a familiar and natural feeling came to my heart. Yes, I am Akainu now. Suddenly, Sakazuki's confidence increased. He has never eaten pork, hasn't he seen a pig run? Even though he didn't inherit Akainu's memory, he was someone who had watched One Piece anime. He knew a little bit about Akainu, and coupled with the physical memory of the body itself, he might not be able to exert his powerful strength. Get out. Sakazuki motioned for the Marines beside him to retreat, and then stared at the pirate bear in front of him coldly, and said, since you are here today, don't even think about leaving. Sakazuki, I will kill you today. The violent bear yelled, then rushed towards Sakazuki abruptly. However, Sakazuki was not nervous at all. At this moment, he had changed from an ordinary person to a hawkish man among Marine, and he had forgotten the nervousness and fear. Great eruption. Naturally, Sakazuki shook his fist directly. This was his first attack, but everything seemed to be a matter of course. The lava formed a huge lava fist and slammed it against the bear. The violent bear was originally moving fast, but when he saw this huge lava fist, he was shocked. He wanted to retreat for the first time. However, between advance and retreat, his speed could not keep up at all, and he was directly affected. the lava fist hit. This blow was Sakazuki's full force, and the power was naturally extraordinary. The violent bear was hit by this punch and screamed miserably, and the whole person flew upside down. Sakazuki didn't look at the violent bear that was smashed by him, but stared at his own hands. He made the punch just now, but now it seems that the power is completely beyond his imagination. He just inherited Akainu. His body, without experience, can make such a powerful blow. It is conceivable that Akainu's original strength is very terrifying. How is it possible? How can the gap be so big? The violent bear on the other side got up from the ground embarrassedly, with burn marks on his body, and he roared angrily. I spent 2 years of continuous cultivation, suffering from inhuman suffering, and my strength has been greatly improved. How can it be the result of this, and why? Recalling the scene of being abused by Akainu, he couldn't help but fear in his heart. It was 2 years ago. The pirate group he was in was destroyed by Akainu alone. He was in Akainu by luck. The men escaped. In order to take revenge, he joined the flying pirates of Golden Lion, and paid a great price to obtain armament haki's training method, in order to be able to defeat Akainu. This time Golden Lion took the initiative to attack Naval headquarters. He was very responsive, but he did not expect that when he encountered Akainu again, the gap between the two of them was still astonishing. Even the armament haki he had learned seemed to be in front of Akainu's magma. It didn't have much effect either. Sakazuki didn't know that so many thoughts flashed in the bear's mind for a moment. He was rejoicing that the fear value came from the bear. Fear value from Grumpy Bear. +152, +96, +53. As soon as his eyes lit up, Sakazuki suddenly became interested. He has gradually figured out the vision that appeared to him, and he also knows whether this is a systematic cheat, and the basis of everything is the fear value. I don't believe that the gap is so big. The violent bear roared again. His eyes rushed toward Sakazuki with blood-red eyes, and he did his best to use armament haki that he had only learned for 2 years. Go to death, Sakazuki. The punch just now made Sakazuki's confidence doubled, so in the face of the grim bear's impact, he didn't worry at all. With a thought, his right arm turned into lava again, and a large amount of magma attacked the grim bear. But the next moment, a scene that surprised him happened. When his magma touched the bear, it didn't burn him, but was blocked by him. Huh? Sakazuki raised his brow, and then reacted. This is armament haki? Both sea stone and armament haki can cause damage to Logia-capable people. The blizzard did not use weapons. It must be armament haki. I heard the blizzard learned how to use armed color before, but it has never been used. He thought the other party was bragging. This violent bear can actually use armament haki. As for armament haki, I should have it too. Armament haki is indeed a restrainer, but Sakazuki did not panic at all. He calmed down and had no distractions. Armed. He controlled his mind on his left arm and gave a light sip. It did not disappoint him, but a black substance appeared on his left arm. This was armament haki. Boom. The moment the bear rushed in front of him, Sakazuki waved his left arm fiercely and collided with the big palm of the bear. Boom. Sakazuki didn't move for half a step, but the blizzard was not so relaxed anymore. The whole person was smashed into the air, which was even more miserable than before. Without any pain, armament haki is both offensive and defensive. As soon as he came into contact with the blizzard, he already felt the gap between the two, so after knocking off the opponent, he didn't look at it, but excitedly watched himself covering armament haki's left arm. This kind of full of power it made him very excited. From an ordinary person without the power to bind a chicken, he has become a Marine Vice Admiral Sakazuki with unparalleled power in one step. If he controls such a powerful force in an instant, if he changes to an ordinary person, he will definitely lose his attitude. But Sakazuki is also someone who has been in the society for many years, and I don't know if he was affected by Akainu's own emotions, so he was at peace at this time. To him defeating the bears seemed to be another thing. Sparse ordinary things. Puff. The violent bear sprayed out blood, he fell to the ground embarrassedly, and the Marine Lucas, who had been following Sakazuki, drew his long knife and rushed in front of the violent bear. The blade was aimed at the bear's neck. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, what should this guy do? Kill immediately, or? For Sakazuki's quick defeat of the grim bear, Lucas did not have the slightest surprise. Instead, he immediately controlled the grim bear and respectfully asked Sakazuki for instructions. Fear value from Grumpy Bear. +286, +188. The blizzard was really terrified at this time. He found that he was really too small in front of Sakazuki. After using the power he learned for 2 years, the proud armament haki was so unbearable in front of Sakazuki. The blow completely smashed his heart, body and soul, making him no longer able to resist. Sakazuki was still very happy when he received the fear value of the violent bear once again. This time he received hundreds of fear values from the violent bear. This pirate has really made a lot of contribution. But what makes him even more happy is that apart from not inheriting Akainu's memory, he should have inherited everything else, including strength and abilities. The next thing he needs to do is to get acquainted with these powers as soon as possible, as long as the master has this power. He is the real Akainu, and there is cheat, so he is full of confidence in his future. Hearing Lucas's request, and there was no subsequent increase in fear value, Sakazuki glanced around. Although he wanted to continue to gain fear value, the most important thing now is to face the flying pirate group and stop it to a greater extent. Loss. Now that he has become Akainu, Sakazuki has changed his mindset. He is no longer the Sakazuki in the past, but Vice Admiral Sakazuki of Naval Headquarters. As a Marine, it is natural to put Marines' interests first. The pirate is enemy. Kill it. Yes. It seemed that Sakazuki would answer like this a long time ago, so Lucas immediately twitched his weapon and slashed the pirate bear directly under the sword. Fear value from Grumpy Bear. Plus 364. What surprised Sakazuki was that at the last moment, the blizzard actually sent another wave of fear points, which is really true. Sucking the corners of his mouth, looking at Lucas who returned to his side, Sakazuki suddenly realized that this seaman was really a talent, not only respectful, but also very obedient to orders. Let him do what he did, and more importantly, he was able to give it to him. Provide fear value. I couldn't help but patted Lucas on the shoulder and was about to speak. Suddenly, the fear value from Lucas Benioff, plus 73. This F*K. Originally wanted to say 2 words of encouragement, but this sudden reminder made Sakazuki unable to say a word. He was too heartbroken. Is he so scary? The fear value is something that makes Sakazuki happy and depressed. Although he has not bought anything yet, it must be that those things are definitely not bad. This is a place of joy, but if you want to get a fear value, this is not to make him. Do you keep scaring people? It's like the fear of the big devil. The fight was intense. Sakazuki suddenly said, what he was talking about was the battle between Marine and the pirates. It has to be said that the strength of the flying pirate group under the Golden Lion is still very terrifying. Fighting in Naval Headquarters, it hasn't shown any signs of decline after fighting for so long. Golden Lion is one enemy too, one person against Garp. And Sengoku, although they seemed to be at a disadvantage, they did not show any defeat. Especially let him focus on the ability of Golden Lion, so that a big pirate ship was crossed in the air by him, surrounded by dozens of mountain peaks and islands, and even many buildings in the Marine headquarters were pulled into the air by him. Besides, the ability of this lion fruit is really terrifying. No wonder Golden Lion can become the most powerful pirate admiral in the New World. In addition to Golden Lion, he also saw a lot of powerful pirates and Marines, such as the Marine soldier who has been using ice. Needless to think about it, it is the future Marine Admiral Aokiji. Another shining guy must be Kizaru. However, the two of them are not easy at this time, and their opponents are also very powerful. The entire naval headquarters is in a melee, except for Sakazuki. He and Marine Lucas have become the 2 most idle people in this war, just like watching a show. Sakazuki. What are you doing here? Just as Sakazuki was feeling emotional, suddenly a loud roar sounded in his ears. He turned his head in amazement, and saw a very strong figure behind him, wearing a marine justice coat and a pale yellow scarf around his neck. The man glared at him. Sakazuki was about to say, "Who are you?" But Lucas by his side was much faster than him, and he only heard him shout out, "Marshal Sora." Marshal Kong. Sakazuki shut up quickly and looked at the man seriously again. He was fortunate in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't say it. Otherwise, he would be ashamed. As a Marine Vice Admiral, he didn't even know the Marshal of Naval Headquarters. It was too embarrassing. NS. Sora obviously didn't notice Sakazuki's expression and attitude, which were completely different from those in the past, and asked in confusion, "What are you doing here alone? Why don't you fight the Faikong pirates?" Sakazuki's mind turned sharply, and quickly replied, "Marshal, I'm thinking about how to defeat the flying pirates." When he heard this, Sora suddenly became interested. Marine has been fighting with the flying pirates for a period of time. The casualties are relatively heavy, and even the naval headquarters are severely damaged, so of course he can't wait to defeat Golden Lion now. "Do you have a way? Sakazuki, tell me what is your way?" This. Sakazuki's heart suddenly burst. How can he do it? It's just a casual sentence. Who would have thought that this void would take it seriously? This is a golden lion, not a silver lion, a bronze lion. It can be defeated casually. No, didn't even Garp and Sengoku team up to win the golden lion? But looking at Sora looking to the end, he felt that if he couldn't come up with a method, maybe the other party would be dissatisfied with his behavior just now. After all, he was the Marshal of Naval Headquarters. As the highest leader, if he was targeted by him, he would treat himself. The next official career is not a good thing. So Sakazuki could only rack his brains and start thinking. If you want to defeat the flying pirates, you must first defeat the golden lion. This is the answer that everyone knows, so Sora naturally doesn't care, still staring at Sakazuki. There must be a strong person to disrupt the momentum of the flying pirate group at the fastest speed. This is our marine territory. Once the pirate loses power, it will not be far away from defeat. The flying pirate group can come from afar to attack naval headquarters, relying on an aura. The golden lion is unbeatable and invincible. As long as this momentum is broken, the pirates will definitely be defeated on Marine's territory. Sora said loudly. Okay, just do it, Sakazuki, this difficult task is left to you. What? Sakazuki couldn't believe his ears. Let him come. Brother, what I mean by this is that you, Martial Marine, will not only improve the aura of the Marines, but as Martial Marine, he must be powerful enough to defeat most of the pirates in one go, thereby disintegrating the pirates. Momentum. But what the hell did you let me come? Although Sakazuki is confident that he has inherited the power of Akainu, he is not confident enough to defeat the flying pirates on his own. Golden Lion's pirates are still very powerful. There are many large pirates under his command. Later, Aokiji and Kizaru, who were both admiral with Akainu, were both entangled. He was a person who had just gained power. How could he have such a strong power? Ah, Marshal, I think this strategy is more suitable for your strength, Sakazuki said with a dry cough. Sora looked at Sakazuki in surprise. This is not like Sakazuki's previous style. As a new generation of Marine Vice Admiral vigorously cultivated by Marine, Sakazuki is recognized by the senior management as one of the best candidates for the next Marine Admiral. Moreover, Sakazuki used to be jealous of evil, and he admired his attitude towards pirates. Now that he has such a good opportunity to attack the flying pirates, he actually retreats a little, which is really weird. As the Marshal of Naval Headquarters, it is more a decision maker than combat power. This is the base of Naval Headquarters. If I take action, it means that Naval Headquarters has been forced into a desperate situation. If it succeeds, it is okay. If it fails, it will deal a heavy blow to Marine's aura, so I can't make a move unless I'm in desperation. Do you understand? Sakazuki. Sakazuki was shocked physically and mentally. He looked at Sora's serious expression, and all the doubts in his heart were solved at once. He couldn't help but remember that he had been puzzled when watching pirates anime in his previous life. During the war on the top, why were ordinary soldiers fighting against ordinary pirates at the beginning? Even Marine Admiral shot was a period of time after the start of the war. As the Marine hero, Garp and Marine Marshal Sengoku, why did it start? In the end, he didn't make a shot, only at the last moment. Now that he heard Kong's words, he understood. At that time, Garp and Sengoku were equivalent to the last barrier of Marine's headquarters. If they took action from the beginning, wouldn't it indicate the incompetence of the rest of Marine? So, the situation now is the same as it was then. Marine Marshal Kong is equivalent to Marine's spiritual support. He either does not make a move, or he must confirm that he will win before he can make a move. Otherwise, he will definitely fall into Marine's aura. Just like the battle on the top, the Marines kept looking for Whitebeard's troubles, but the captains of the Whitebeard pirates went forward to stop Whitebeard, which is the same reason. Whitebeard is the mainstay of the Whitebeard pirate group. Starting from the beginning, it will not only reflect the incompetence of the pirates, but also increase Marine's momentum. Therefore, Whitebeard finally took action when he was forced to helplessly. Although this sounds a bit contradictory, the fact is that large-scale wars are not the same as fighting alone. The most important thing in large-scale wars is not personal force, but a good leader and spiritual support. As long as this leader and the spiritual support is still there, the momentum of the army is still there. It's like the war in ancient China. Except for special ages, how many of the top leaders have rushed forward as soldiers? Because in that case, once the leader has an accident, it will lead to the defeat of the entire war. Sakazuki himself is a more agile person. When Sora said that, he understood the key point almost instantaneously. At this time, no matter what the reason, Sakazuki is not 100% sure. Sora can never do it. I understand, Marshal. Sora saw Sakazuki react, and he was quite satisfied. In today's naval headquarters, Sakazuki is a junior he values very much. He is strong and insists on justice. In the future, he must be one of Marine Admiral's candidates. Although Marine Admiral is Marine the strongest combat power, but empty force is not enough, you must have enough strategy. I am very optimistic about you, Sakazuki, I will leave it to you. Although he understood the key, Sakazuki was still embarrassed when he heard Sora's heavy instructions, because he really couldn't think of a good way. Even if he inherited the power of Akainu, after all, there is no real integration and no combat experience. If he rushes forward so recklessly, he will not only be unable to make achievements, but will make himself embarrassed. Therefore, rushing is absolutely impossible. Is there any method? It's not easy to make a final decision. Sakazuki doesn't have to think about it. It's impossible to do it with his current strength. So the best way is to disrupt the current situation and let naval headquarters gain an advantage. Fight against the pirates' momentum, but this is not something that can be done casually. That trick? Suddenly, Sakazuki's inspiration flashed. He remembered that Akainu had a terrifying big trick in the original work, that is, that lava was washed into the atmosphere, and then formed like a meteor shower of magma, which fell from the sky and formed an amazing lava meteor. The power of the move is very amazing, and it can also change the battlefield situation. Try it. He couldn't think of other good methods, so he was going to try it. He didn't know the principle of this trick, but in his opinion, the most difficult thing was to blast the lava fist into the sky. Raising his fists and aiming at the sky, Sakazuki took a deep breath. He realized that he seemed to have become the protagonist at this moment. This feeling was something he had never had before, so a kind of lofty ambition came to his heart. He felt, I will be able to succeed. The fists turned into lava, and under the gaze of Marshal Sora and Lucas, a lava fist rushed out of Sakazuki's shoulder. Puff. An embarrassing scene happened. When the huge lava fist flew 5 or 6 meters in the air, it lost its gravity, hit the ground with a snap, and eroded the ground. Marshal Sora and Lucas both looked stunned and didn't understand what Sakazuki was doing. Sakazuki's face remained unchanged, but his heart was embarrassed. He made a mistake just now. Because of the increased tension for the first time, he made a control mistake and released the lava fist without forming an impact. Naturally, it was impossible to fly. Taking a breath again, he calmed down and allowed himself to quickly enter the realm of heart like Shisui. His other advantages may not be many, but he can control the speed of calm down, which is younger than Sakazuki. The very irritable personality formed a sharp contrast at the time. This time it went smoothly. He gathered all his power on his shoulders, and then suddenly used his abilities. I saw that his shoulders formed a huge force, and his fists ejected huge lava punches, like a rocket, fast, rushed to the sky. The lava fist rushed several hundred meters in the blink of an eye, and it did not stop. The two fists continued to form a huge lava fist, rushing high into the air at the same speed. This scene fell into Sora's eyes, and he was very shocked. He naturally understood Sakazuki's magma abilities and knew Sakazuki's attack characteristics, but it was the first time he saw this way. He didn't understand why Sakazuki. He rushed the lava fist high into the air, but had to admit that this scene seemed very shocking. Meteor Volcano. I don't know how many lava punches were expelled. In the end, Sakazuki felt that he had no more energy to use, so he immediately stopped erupting lava punches, and shouted the name of the move directly, although it sounded a little weird. But completely released his excitement. He actually completed this incredible move. A large number of huge lava punches all rushed into the sky, and could no longer see half of them. Sora couldn't help but look at the panting Sakazuki strangely, and asked, Sakazuki, what happened to your attack just now? Sakazuki sighed. He knew that his move was successful, so he was very excited, and immediately replied, Marshal, this is a big move. I have gained momentum. You will see its power later. He didn't react until he finished speaking. It's wrong. This is Akainu's unique trick. How can you listen to the empty tone, as if you don't know that there is such a trick at all, is it? Thinking of this possibility, Sakazuki's heart was even more shocked. His expression became more excited, and he pointed to the air and said, Marshal, look. Sora raised his head, puzzled at first, but his face suddenly changed in the next moment, and suddenly he saw a sky with blue sky and white clouds, and suddenly a huge change took place, forming a red, like a fire cloud, very dazzling and dazzling. This is. In my heart, it is impossible for the blue sky and white clouds to suddenly change such a huge change, forming a burning cloud. Thinking of Sakazuki's reminder, he immediately asked Sakazuki in surprise, Sakazuki, is this you caused? As coming. Sakazuki also looked at the sky, and when he saw the burning cloud getting deeper and deeper, he knew that Meteor Volcano was about to succeed. I don't have time to say more, Marshal, my attack is about to come, and I need to immediately make everyone retreat and exit Wantu. Sora didn't hesitate at all, so he chose to believe Sakazuki's words for the first time. Then he took out a phone worm and shouted, all soldiers obey the order, I'm Sora. Now I give the latest instructions and retreat immediately, all soldiers. Withdraw immediately, withdraw from Wantu, and execute the order immediately. Because the empty phone worm is an amplified phone worm that can amplify his own voice, the soldiers in the entire naval headquarters can hear him. Sora's command spread throughout the naval headquarters for the first time, but all the Marines who heard this were instantly at a loss. Retreat. At this time, to be precise, naval headquarters still had the advantage. Although the pirates broke into the bay head, caused great damage to Marine base, and killed many people, it still couldn't change Marine's advantage. Since it is an advantage, so many people are puzzled by the command of Sora. Wouldn't it be that the pirates invade the bay by retreating? Once the pirates break into the bay, no matter what the result is, Marine will not be considered the winner. After all, the loss will definitely be more serious than it is now. But doubts turn to doubts. The difference between Marine and pirates is that Marine is an orderly army. They know how to obey orders. Even if empty orders seem very strange, they still hesitate for a moment and choose to obey. I saw that on the battlefield. Many of the naval headquarters officers immediately integrated their troops, leaving some people behind, and then others retreating in an orderly manner. Retreat, retreat now. A scene that surprised all the pirates of the Flying Pirates group took place. They had been telling their lives and deaths a while ago, and the Marine, who was determined to hold the bay head, retreated quickly. The Marine soldiers who had left behind could not stop them at all. The advancement, which was not achieved in the previous tens of minutes, has now been achieved all at once. Although I don't understand why Marine has to retreat, but the red-eyed pirates have already killed the Golden Lion. When Golden Lion is restrained by Garp and Sengoku, and there is no leader and command, he is chasing the retreating Marine. There is only a small part of the sea. The thief remained calm, did not pursue, and also wanted to stop the surrounding companions, but this part of the pirates was still a minority, and it was not very effective at all. This strange scene was naturally seen by the Golden Lion fighting on the air pirate ship. He was also a legendary pirate who had been flying across the sea for decades. He immediately felt something was wrong. Golden Lion, your opponent is us. Although Golden Lion feels wrong, but who is his opponent? Marine hero Garp and Marine Admiral Sengoku are all pinnacle figures. Even though they don't understand why Sora gave such an order, they know that Golden Lion must not be allowed at this time. Lion freed his hands to command the pirate. Garp. Sengoku turned into a big Buddha directly, a shockwave at the Golden Lion, and then yelled at Garp. Around the Golden Lion's pirate ship, there were dozens of peaks floating in the air. Facing the shockwave of Sengoku, he directly pulled a small mountain. Although the force of the shockwave was extremely strong, the peak was big enough, all of a sudden, it blocked the shockwave. On the other side, Garp and Sengoku partnered with Sengoku for decades. Naturally, he could understand his old friend's mind with just one look. He rushed out and smashed the huge mountain. Boom. The battle was very amazing. The huge mountain was blown away from the middle by Garp's fist. Then there was another shockwave from Sengoku. When the two of them joined forces, the mountain collapsed. Don't let him get away. Sengoku returned to his human form. Although the attack of the big Buddha fruit was powerful, it was also extremely energy-consuming, and it was impossible to maintain that state forever. Although Garp usually doesn't look tuned, once he enters the battle state, it is very reliable. He is definitely the #1 character among Marine. The three of them were preparing to do their hands again, but the sky suddenly rumbling loudly, because they were already in the air, so naturally they were the first to hear. This is. When the three raised their heads, Sakazuki's attack was fully prepared, so the red clouds in the sky rolled and dyed the entire sky, and then the red clouds dispersed and the rumbling sound became louder. Coming. Sakazuki below, however, showed joy on his face. This is his move. Judging from Sora's reaction, he knew that the deity had not used this move before. Whether it has been developed or not, this time absolutely this is Meteor Volcano's first appearance, and it will surely shock everyone. Rumble. What is that? The violent sound in the sky moved loudly, and the pirates and seamen who were still fighting couldn't help but raised their heads and looked at the sky. When they saw the fiery red sky, they didn't react. They saw something like a meteor suddenly fell in the sky. The speed was very fast, and the momentum was extremely shocking, and the sky was overwhelming. It's magma. The three Garp in the air quickly discovered what was falling, which turned out to be huge lava fists. Magma is Sakazuki's ability. Both Garp and Sengoku reacted immediately. Since it is magma, only Sakazuki can use it. When Sakazuki used magma fist to rush to the sky, they also saw it, but they didn't care too much, but after falling down. The momentum is really horrible, really like a flame meteor, overwhelming the sky. The Golden Lion Garp in the air was naturally the first to come into contact with the giant lava fist. Even if Golden Lion tried his best to control the floating mountains and pirate ships around, it was too large to avoid the overwhelming space. Meteor Volcano. Like a real volcanic eruption and meteor fall, it hits fiercely. Many peaks were hit by lava fists and turned into rubble, smashed from the air uncontrollably, even if it was the huge pirate ship. It was also the stern that was hit and burned, and the entire sky was completely dyed red, leaving only the falling meteor lava punches. Boom. Finally, the magma fell like a meteor shower. Because Sakazuki's attack direction was mainly the pirates at the bay head, most of the magma fell on the bay head. The magma that fell into the sea was okay, but it fell on the pirate ship. The magma exploded directly on the pirate ship, destroying one after another. The more terrifying thing is that it falls on the defensive buildings and the ground of the naval headquarters base. After impacting the atmosphere and then falling, the power of magma is amplified a lot, not only can burn, but also has the characteristics of explosion spreading, so it falls. The explosion that occurred immediately above the ground splashed everywhere, and the magma eroded everything mercilessly. What? The screams of screams kept ringing. At this moment, Wantu seemed to have become a land of flames. The magma falling in the air was ruthlessly harvesting one life after another. In just an instant, countless pirates died in under the magma. Most of the pirate ship that rushed into the bay was also destroyed. The sky was fiery red at the moment, and at this moment, the ground also turned fiery red. Magma burned the earth. The sea was also turned into a hot boiling sea by the hot magma, and the earth turned into a sea of lava. Not only did the pirates suffer, but the marines who left behind were also affected. Many of the marines who did not exit the range of the magma attack died under the lava fist meteor shower, and desperate screams and calls for help resounded. The entire marine base. Run, it's Sakazuki Vice Admiral's magma. If you get it, you will die. Run. Save me. Save me. I don't want to die. My wife and children are still waiting for me to go home. Save me. Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Why? Why even attack us? I am not reconciled. No, no, help. This was hit by Sakazuki's Meteor Volcano. It belonged to the screams of the soldiers on one side of Marine, and the screams of the pirates on the other side were even more unstoppable, several times more tragic than Marine. Where does the magma come from? Why is there such a terrible magma? Does God want to punish us? This is the magma power of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Sakazuki. Get ashore quickly. Don't stay in the sea anymore. You will be scalded to death by the sea. How can there be such a terrible person in Marine? Save me. This. Both the Marine and the pirates were stunned by this scene. Although many Marine soldiers were killed by mistake, they have to admit that the pirates of the Flying Pirate Group suffered unprecedented heavy blows, several times. Yu Haibing's pirate died tragically. Sakazuki, is this your new move? Even Marine Marshal Kong was shocked by this trick Meteor Volcano at this time. As for the seamen who were killed by mistake, he also selectively ignored them. As Marshal Marine, he still has this awareness. If he can gain a greater advantage with a small amount of casualties, he will definitely choose without hesitation. The scene before him undoubtedly proves Sakazuki's abilities and has brought a great deal to Marine. Big advantage. Too cruel. Kuzan, who had retreated to the rear, had already used his abilities to withstand the impact of the lava fist several times and saved many Marines, so he couldn't bear to see the lava fist still falling continuously. Yeah, as this Sakazuki's new move, it's really scary enough, whether we are the enemy or the enemy. The yellow Kizaru expressions are pulled together and look very wretched, but he is not as unbearable as Kuzan, because he himself has similar big moves. Once this kind of attack is activated, it is a large-scale attack. Points are normal. Sakazuki Vice Admiral is really amazing. This is the voice of the admirer of Sakazuki. On the pirate ship in the sky, Garp and Sengoku stopped the Golden Lion, and Sengoku shouted, "Golden Lion, your defeat is determined. Today you cannot escape Marineford." Golden Lion looked at the pirate who suffered heavy losses below, and laughed wildly. "Escape? What a big joke, Sengoku, we are all old friends. When have you seen Golden Lion escape? Since he brought people here, he never thought about running away. Roger is regarded as his biggest opponent in his life. Now Roger is caught by Marine. He cannot accept the result of this biggest opponent, so he must meet Roger. Ask in person. But you Marine are really talented, this kid who uses magma really has 2 chances. After playing for so long, Sakazuki's move caused the pirate the heaviest loss, so even Golden Lion, the pirate admiral, had to admit that this move was powerful. Sengoku, Garp, come on, the sky is my home court, I will be able to beat you today. After fighting for such a long time, they have already hit a real fire, and the situation has developed to such a degree, no one can retreat, only a fight to the death. Garp and Sengoku glanced at each other and immediately understood each other's thoughts, so they stood side by side. Now the victory and defeat of this battle and their shoulders are on both of them. As long as they can defeat the Golden Lion, the flying pirates that have been hit hard, it will collapse in an instant, and then they Marine will win. Sakazuki didn't hear Sora's exclamation at all, because his attention at this time was completely attracted by another thing. Fear score from Kit Harington, +82. Fear score from Heidi Clark, +69. Fear score from Chorus Gillen, +264, from. A series of prompts made Sakazuki plunged into a great shock. In a short period of time, he even provided him with thousands of points of fear, and it was still increasing. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Enjoy. An urgent voice suddenly came from his ear, which made Sakazuki very uncomfortable. What was his name? But he quickly reacted. Isn't this just calling him? The main reason is that he hasn't gotten used to himself now. His identity, so in a state of joy, he didn't react for a while. What's wrong? Sakazuki, who immediately exited the main menu, had not had time to ask a question, and saw Kong staring at him with wide-eyed eyes, which made him think, what's the matter? Kong asked. Why do I respond so slowly when I talk to you? Sakazuki was quite embarrassed. The embarrassment was attracted by the large amount of fear, so he didn't react. I used this trick for the first time, so I was a little lost. What's wrong? You did very well. Sora made no secret of his admiration, and said, Sakazuki, your blow is just right. It is equivalent to the heaviest blow to the flying pirates. Most of their pirate ship has been destroyed, and they can't stay in the sea. I can only move forward, but here is our marine base, they are dead. The battle was anxious for so long, and Sakazuki's blow was the final word, so Sora was so excited. However, Sakazuki, you have a very wide range of this move, and it has hurt a lot of our soldiers. Sakazuki naturally saw this clearly, but he didn't think there was anything. This was a battlefield. Although he was only experiencing it for the first time, he was not a virgin. If he wanted to win, how could there be no sacrifice? It was a bit of a mistake, but there is no other way. This trick has a wide range. After it is used, even I can't control it, but I think that for justice, their sacrifice is worthwhile. Sora turned his head silently. In fact, he didn't care too much. After listening to Sakazuki's words, he looked back at the battlefield. Because Sakazuki's attack caused a great effect, it gave the pirate a heavy blow. After the move was over, Sora immediately ordered the Marines under his command to attack. Like the wolf-like Marine soldiers, they immediately rushed into the panic among the pirates. The next war did not last too long, because by a meteor volcano of Sakazuki, the pirates suffered heavy losses and their momentum continued to decline, but the most important thing was the battle above the sky, under the joint hands of Garp and Sengoku. The pirate chief admiral, as strong as Golden Lion, was defeated in the end. With the defeat of Golden Lion, the pirates, who were already demoralized, were immediately defeated. They were quickly killed and caught by naval headquarters. Only a few pirates were driving the only remaining pirates. The ship fled in embarrassment, and it is difficult to say whether it can really escape. Sakazuki, who took a shot once, did not take another shot in the next battle. Unfortunately, with the defeat of the pirates, his fear value has basically not increased much, only a few dozen points increased sporadically. Until the end of the war, in the end he received a total of more than 6,000 fear points, plus the previously obtained, his remaining balance became 8,366. Although this number is high, Sakazuki is a bit strange, because he received the reminder just now. About 100 people provided him with a fear value, but the actual situation is that the number of pirates is at least high. 1. He killed at least 1,000 people and burned to death, but in the end, only 100 people provided fear points. This base ratio is really a bit low. While the Marines were cleaning the battlefield, Sakazuki was studying his own cheat. He found that there was only haki fruit in the store for purchase. After clicking on this option, there were 3 smaller options, namely Armament Haki and Observation Haki, and Conqueror's Haki, each is priced at 1,000 points. The lottery is even simpler. The price is 100 points once, and the income and expenditure or the income and expenditure of the fear value, but now there is only income, and he has not spent yet. When he was about to try the purchase, someone found him and said that Marshal Sora was calling the senior executives of naval headquarters to the conference room for a meeting. As the young vice admiral, one of the future admiral candidates, he naturally belongs to the senior executives of naval headquarters, naturally qualified to participate in such high-level meetings. Meeting immediately after the war 2 hours, the efficiency of naval headquarters is still very high. Naturally, Sakazuki would not delay, and immediately led by the seaman to the meeting room. When he arrived, the meeting room was already full of people. An oval long table, the Marshal Naval Headquarters sat empty in the middle, and the 2 sides were filled with people. Now there are only 2 admirals in Naval Headquarters, namely Sengoku and Zephyr. Sengoku sits in the first place on the left side of the empty space, Zephyr sits in the first place on the left side of the empty space, and below the empty space is Garp, an empty seat, and one below. Marine Vice Admiral, who was also older, was followed by Marine Vice Admiral, 7 people. On the right side of Zephyr are also 7 people, the Crane Vice Admiral, Kizaru, Aokiji and the other 2 Marine Vice Admiral. As the youngest Vice Admiral, Aokiji is the end. There was only one empty place in the entire conference room, so Sakazuki naturally didn't have to think about anything, and went straight to that place and sat down. After Sakazuki sat down, Marshal Marine, who was sitting in the main seat, immediately said, "Since everyone is here, let's start the meeting. What happened today?" Obviously Sora had been preparing for a while, and there was no pause after speaking. At the beginning, Sakazuki was still listening carefully, but soon lost interest and glanced at the people in the meeting room. After a few glances, he found that among the dozen people present, except for the more iconic Sengoku Garp and others, the other Marine Vice Admiral, he could only recognize Kizaru and Aokiji, and the other Vice Admiral. Basically, they are in their 40s and 50s. Only the Vice Admiral who sits at the end of his row looks younger, about 30 years old. Sakazuki also found that when he looked at other people, several people looked at him intentionally or unintentionally. Some of them had strange eyes and he couldn't understand what it meant. After all, it was Marshal Marine. After speaking for a while, he talked for more than 10 minutes, mainly talking about this time the Golden Lion attacked Naval Headquarters. For Naval Headquarters, this incident is absolutely terrible. Since the establishment of Naval Headquarters, it has never been so openly marked on the base. This incident will inevitably cause extremely bad effects. Fortunately, this battle was won by Marine. Otherwise, if Marine loses, the face of Naval Headquarters will be completely defeated and become a laughingstock. After observing for a while, Sakazuki also lost interest. He returned to the main interface in his mind and continued the research just now. He clicked on the haki fruit option in the store. There were 3 options, namely Conquerors, Armed Color, and Scene Color. After thinking about it, he was just preparing to experiment, so he chose a haki that he didn't have, clicked on the option of Conqueror's haki, and then popped up with a purchase confirmation option similar to the previous online game, and the price was 1,000 points. After clicking OK, Sakazuki didn't feel anything. He scanned his eyes and found that there was an additional option next to the balance in the lower right corner, which was marked with the word backpack, so he clicked. It is still a backpack similar to that of online games. There are a total of 16 backpacks. At this time, a peach-shaped fruit pattern appeared in the first box. Sakazuki clicked on the pattern, and an extraction option appeared immediately. He did not hesitate and chose OK. Suddenly, Sakazuki in the meeting room found that there was an extra fruit in his hand that looked like a peach, which was exactly the same as the fruit pattern in the backpack. This also made him understand that the extraction option is to remove the contents of the backpack. The real world is extracted from the backpack, so this fruit will appear in his hands. Because his hand was placed under the conference table, there was an extra fruit in his hand, but no one noticed it. He looked down at the fruit in his hand and thought it should be eaten, but he really didn't know whether he could rely on it. Spectrum, so after hesitating for a few seconds, I still feel like giving it a try. One hand blocked it, and the other hand quickly put the fruit into his mouth, but he was shocked the next moment, because the whole fruit slipped into his throat after the fruit entered the mouth, before he could bite it. Without the sensation of eating food, the fruit disappears. While he was stunned, a message reminded him on the main interface in his mind, and he took a closer look. Take 1 haki fruit to turn on Conqueror's haki 1. Is this all right? Sakazuki's face was bewildered. The fruit slipped into his abdomen as soon as he entered it, without the slightest sensation, and it reminded him that after turning on Conqueror's haki, why did he not feel any? And the asterisk one at the back, what does this mean? Sakazuki, who didn't understand it, bought a haki fruit again, and then in the same situation, the fruit slipped directly into his mouth. Take 1 haki fruit, Conqueror's haki 2. The result is still the same, but the previous asterisk one has now become 2. This is the difference, but what is the difference? Sakazuki still did not figure out, because according to the prompts, he should already have Conqueror's haki, but the problem is, how did Conqueror's haki be released? This should be different from armament haki, right? Sakazuki, who was studying what was going on, suddenly heard Sora mention his name, and he quickly sat down. This time I was able to defeat the flying pirates so simply and neatly. In addition to Sengoku and Garp, Sakazuki Vice Admiral also made a great contribution, so I want to highlight it here. After Sora finished speaking, he looked at Sakazuki with satisfaction. He was very satisfied with Sakazuki's role in the war, so he took the initiative to propose it at this important meeting, and he did not hide his appreciation. Faced with Sora's appreciation, Sakazuki naturally wouldn't be too excited, but calmly said, "This is what I should do." Sora said with satisfaction, "Very modest, everyone should learn more from Sakazuki. If each of our marine soldiers can have such an awareness and regard marine justice as the first element, we will not let the pirates continue doing evil in the sea." Hearing Sora admiring Sakazuki, several people in the meeting room frowned unconsciously. As representatives of the younger generation, Sakazuki and Pelusalino are the 2 most outstanding. Although Kuzan is also very good, they are more senior since the 2 are much worse. However, Sakazuki and Kizaru have their own characteristics. Pelusalino appears to be lazy, while Sakazuki is cruel and unrelenting. In some people's eyes, Sakazuki's behavior is rather unacceptable. Now Sora publicly praises Sakazuki. Feel uncomfortable. In this incident, Sengoku and Garp were the top performers, and Sakazuki followed closely behind. Are you okay? Sora asked everyone here. Sengoku and Garp teamed up to defeat Golden Lion, the soul of the flying pirates, which is undoubtedly the best effort. But Sakazuki only took 1 or 2 shots, and the credit is second only to them, which makes people some are upset. Naval headquarters is an army with extremely strict ranks. If an average soldier wants to improve his rank, he must have enough credit and qualifications. The qualifications are okay, but the credit is not just for catching a few pirates. It can be obtained, so any marine soldier attaches great importance to the merits. Especially everyone here, among them, except for the Marshal Sora who cannot be promoted, the rest are likely to rise. For example, Sengoku and Zephyr will go up to the Marshal, and the rest of Vice Admiral will go up. Marine Admiral, credit is especially important at this time. Except for the 2 unambitious Vice Admiral, Garp and Suru, the other Vice Admiral heard that Sakazuki had given such a great credit. They all changed their expressions in different ways, but they did not say anything, but someone said. I have an opinion. Marine Admiral Zephyr, who was sitting in the first place on the right side of the sky, suddenly said. As one of the 2 admirals of naval headquarters today, Zephyr is definitely highly qualified. He is a seaman of the same era as Sengoku, Garp and others. In addition, he also has no ambitions, although he still has the name of Marine Admiral these years. But actually didn't take care of things. Instead, he carefully taught the younger generation of Marine. There are countless Marine soldiers who graduated from him over the years. For example, among the Marine Vice Admiral present here, several graduated from him: Sakazuki, Paluzolino, Kuzan, and another age, the big Vice Admiral. Therefore, Zephyr can be said to be full of peaches and plums in the naval headquarters. It is very respected and has a very high status. Zephyr jumped out to express his opinion, which is still very rare in the past, so the Marine executives here all looked at Zephyr in surprise and asked, Zephyr, what do you think? Zephyr said directly, I think this incident should not be credited to Sakazuki. Hearing Zephyr's words, the expressions of all the people present had changed in different ways. As the protagonist, Sakazuki frowned instinctively. He didn't understand how Zephyr would target him. Why? Sora also asked quite strangely. He still knew Zephyr better, so he felt that Zephyr didn't say this out of selfishness, but there must be other reasons. Zephyr said in a deep voice, it is undeniable that Sakazuki's attack did play a vital role in this battle. Not only did it annihilate a large number of pirates, it also created a good opportunity for Marine to counterattack. With this, you can remember a great deal, but at the beginning, Zephyr praised Sakazuki for his credit, just like Sora, but at the end of the day, the conversation suddenly changed. He hadn't even started to say it. Everyone knew that what he said next was definitely not good for Sakazuki, so they all pricked their ears. Compared with Sakazuki, Zephyr's reputation is obviously much higher, so more people are naturally willing to believe in Zephyr. That trick killed a lot of pirates, and also killed our soldiers. At least hundreds of soldiers died under the lava and killed their companions. This is a very serious crime in Marine. If the person who caused all this is not punished, but credited instead, how unfair is this to the dead soldiers? How serious will it affect Marine? So I definitely don't agree to credit for Sakazuki. On the contrary, I feel that severe punishment should be given. This is my opinion. After Zephyr finished speaking, he gave Sakazuki a terribly dissatisfied look. Sora's expression suddenly stagnated. He thought that Zephyr would object to crediting Sakazuki, but never expected that Zephyr not only didn't want to credit Sakazuki, but also asked him to punish Sakazuki severely. This contrast is really too big. But as Marshal Marine, of course, he can't just listen to one person's opinion, so he turned his head to look at Sengoku and asked, Sengoku, what do you think? Sengoku is known as the resourceful general. When I asked him, he immediately understood the idea of Sakazuki. Knowing that Sakazuki's heart was biased toward Sakazuki, Sengoku said, there are merits, and in that case, it is better to cancel out the two. His answer can be said to be very particular. Neither should be guilty, and no one can fault it. It is what it is. It is a great contribution to help Marine win the victory, but it is also true to kill one's own person by mistake. The merits and demerits are normal. Kong nodded, and then asked Garp and Crane. Garp, Crane, what do you think? Garp scratched his head and asked blankly, what are you talking about? He has been sitting here, no matter how distracted he is, it is impossible not to hear it, saying this is just to show that he does not want to participate. He Vice Admiral said faintly, it's okay, everything depends on the Marshal's orders. None of them belong to the Zephyr family. Respect is respect, but Kokong is obviously a little optimistic about Sakazuki, so they don't want to express their opinions. Sora had a headache and didn't want to ask any more, so he asked Sakazuki, Sakazuki, what do you think? Do you think you should be credited or punished? This is not a good question, and it is not easy to answer. No one can judge himself, but nothing can be done by Sora. You can't ignore Zephyr's opinion. After all, it is a fact that Sakazuki killed himself by mistake. If it goes out, it will be bad for him and Sakazuki. From Sakazuki's attitude, Sakazuki can also see that he is facing himself, and Zephyr is obviously not pleasing to his eyes. Although he does not inherit the memory, he also knows from the original work of One Piece that the future Marine 3 Admiral is Zephyr's disciple. It's just that Kuzan is the most attracted to Zephyr. He, Paluzolino, and Zephyr are not very satisfied. Since Zephyr saw him not pleasing to his eyes, and it was related to his own interests, he did not hesitate to answer. Of course it was credited to me. Anyone with a discerning eye can see my credit. If you don't credit it, who will pay it back in the future? Willing to contribute to the battle. Zephyr snorted coldly, and said, killing his own person, I still want credit, Sakazuki, is that what I taught you? If you don't punish you, it will be irresponsible to all the soldiers. Sakazuki fell silent suddenly. Zephyr saw that Sakazuki was silent, but did not show a happy expression. He still solemnly said, gong is gong, and demerits are demerits. I don't agree with the saying that merits and demerits are equal to each other. Sakazuki must be severely punished, in order to act as an example, otherwise. We won. Sakazuki suddenly interrupted Zephyr. Zephyr's tone stagnated, and everyone else looked at Sakazuki in surprise and interrupted Zephyr. What are you talking about? Zephyr became very dissatisfied and hummed. Sakazuki repeated silently. We won. Now everyone understood what Sakazuki meant. It was nothing more than saying that we won this war, and if we win, we will punish the meritorious person. This is really unreasonable. The other vice admiral who had not spoken before, after hearing Sakazuki's words, several of them nodded secretly. Sakazuki was right. No matter what, we won the war, and he is also a man of merit. Even if he killed his own person by mistake, it was an unintentional act, helpless, because it is indeed impossible to punish it because of this. Especially a few of them, like Sakazuki, who belong to the Hawks, agree very much. If they keep their hands on the pirates because of various scruples, then Marine will only lose more, so they all agree with Sakazuki's approach. There was also a slight dissatisfaction with Zephyr's proposal, but because of their identity, they couldn't say anything. Zephyr said angrily, we won, but that's not yours alone. It's everyone's efforts. Everyone is struggling to kill the enemy, but you killed your own person. This is a heinous crime. This can't be changed, we won. Sakazuki said calmly again, and Zephyr's anger was even worse with that calm face. Sakazuki, do you know that because of you, those soldiers who died, how much grief their families will endure? They did not die in the hands of the enemy, but died in the hands of their own people. How can you tell their families? Confess. Zephyr stood up very excitedly and pointed at Sakazuki. He lost his calm demeanor at all, and was almost yelling at him. Seeing this completely different side of Zephyr, everyone present looked at each other, especially Sengoku and others from the same era as Zephyr. They have known Zephyr for decades, and they have never seen Zephyr's angry look. Sakazuki is his student. Even if he is angry, he won't be like this, right? We won. But Sakazuki's answer was still these 4 words. Zephyr was furious and shouted, Sakazuki, is your justice to sacrifice the lives of your companions? Because of you, how many loyal soldiers have died, and how many families are shattered? The cause and effect of all this is you. Sakazuki raised his head and looked at Zephyr with unclear eyes, without the slightest expression on his face, and slowly said, since you condemn me as a teacher, then as a student, I also have a question that I want to ask. Zephyr teacher. Zephyr said coldly, what do you want to ask? Although he knew that what Sakazuki asked next might not be a good question, he still didn't mean to avoid it. As Sakazuki said, he questioned Sakazuki as a teacher, and Sakazuki was naturally qualified to ask him as a student. Faced with the same situation, what would teacher Zephyr do? Choose to sacrifice a few people and end the war quickly, or let the war continue and more people will die. The only difference is that these soldiers are not dead. In the hands of your own people, but in the hands of the enemy, if it were you, what would you do? Teacher Zephyr. Zephyr's expression suddenly changed, and everyone else in the room also became serious. Some of them looked at Zephyr worriedly, because this question seemed simple, but it was not that easy to answer. Choosing the first type is the same as Sakazuki. If you choose the second type, there will be more sacrifices. As Sakazuki said, the only difference is not to die in your own hands, but in that case, a broken family will only more. Choose the second one, and Zephyr is even less qualified to condemn Sakazuki with such words. Zephyr opened his mouth and didn't answer for a moment. Sora, Sengoku, Suru and others are also looking at Zephyr worriedly. They are not ordinary soldiers, but senior Marines. Naturally, they need to consider more, so they know the meaning behind this problem better. At the same time, they were all very surprised. Although Sakazuki used to be very shrewd, he was more ruthless and ruthless. There was no such thing as a word frontman who could choke people like Zephyr. They all felt that today's Sakazuki seems a little different from before. Seeing that Zephyr hadn't answered for a long time, Paluzolino, who was sitting on the right side, suddenly smiled and said, "If it were me, I would definitely choose the first one. Hurry up and end the battle. Everyone should rest early, right?" Zephyr glared at Paluzolino fiercely. His unwelcome to Paluzolino was far above Sakazuki, so it was naturally uncomfortable to see him deliberately run himself. Humph. However, when Paluzolino was interrupted, Zephyr had a clear idea. He snorted and said, "If it were me, I would not choose either. Instead, I would use my greatest strength to help Marine. Victory, with the strength of our Marine, the entire flying pirate group can definitely be wiped out. It's just a matter of time." Sakazuki curled his mouth and said, "It makes sense, but why didn't you see your teacher during the previous war?" Zephyr was despised by Sakazuki, and suddenly shouted angrily, "That's because the old man needs to be in charge of the rear." Ha ha. Sakazuki laughed, with a contemptuous expression, which made Zephyr even more angry. In fact, this is not Zephyr's problem, because he has already retired to the second line, so he usually doesn't play in front of the battle like this, but now when Sakazuki laughed like this, it made him feel like he was greedy for life and fear of death. "Even so, according to the method you always said, how long will it take?" Sakazuki asked. Zephyr said coldly, "Even if time is delayed, it is better than killing your own companion like this. As a companion, do you know what it feels like to die in your own hands?" Sakazuki replied, "I really don't know how they feel, but do you really know? In my opinion, they have chosen to participate in the war, and they have already reported their determination to die. If they can use their lives in exchange for victory in the war, I think they will not have the slightest complaint, not just them, even me. As long as I can sacrifice myself, the war can end, and I will sacrifice myself without hesitation. Soldiers are not afraid of death, our seniors must be resolute and decisive, otherwise how can we be worthy of them? You said that I killed my comrades. I admit that, but because of this, we quickly won the victory. If you say, the sacrifice will only be more, then there will be more than hundreds, but thousands of people sacrificed. The pirate is right in front of you. If everyone is afraid of sacrifice, who else can defend justice? I don't regret my decision. If I was given another chance to choose, I would still make the same choice. I stand here today to oppose, not on my own behalf, but on behalf of the tens of thousands of Marine soldiers. We must not only be cruel to the enemy, but also cruel to ourselves. It is more ruthless than them to be able to suppress them and eradicate them." Sakazuki said so much in one breath, and the faces of all the people present changed, because Sakazuki's words sounded a bit cruel and extreme, but they were very reasonable. Even Zephyr himself was said to have no idea how to refute it. Sora's face also became serious. He had been optimistic about Sakazuki. Now after listening to these words, his appreciation has become more. He used to think that Sakazuki was just a harsh and disciplined person, but now he sees it. Come, not only in these aspects, but also in terms of words and mentality very much to his heart. People like Sengoku, Garp, and Suru, although they also think that Sakazuki is a bit paranoid and cruel, they have to admit that in this matter, Sakazuki's choice is indeed the best, and it is cruel to sacrifice a small number of people. But at the very least, more human lives have been saved, which is beyond doubt. Sakazuki, although your words are reasonable, this approach is not worthy of recognition. If everyone has the same idea as you, then who would dare to give their backs to their peers in the future? If this is not possible, where will Marines' cohesion be? If an army loses cohesion and mutual trust, how can it still talk about upholding justice in the world? I absolutely disagree with such justice. Kuzan, who was sitting at the front and end of the right, stood up suddenly, looked straight at Sakazuki, and retorted with a righteous expression. Sakazuki suddenly turned his head and looked at Kuzan. Not only him, but everyone in the room also did the same actions, and they were all very shocked, as if they had met Kuzan for the first time. As a new Marine Vice Admiral, Kuzan is qualified to participate in this kind of high-level meeting because he has Logia frozen fruit and has great potential. Faced with Sakazuki, who is also very hot in Marine Vice Admiral. However, Kuzan's words really made the people present to ponder. He was right. If it is really like what he said, the trust between Marine soldiers will be greatly reduced in the future. This is a very important matter, and it must be cautioned. Slightly frowned, even if it was Sakazuki himself, he had to admit that what Kuzan said was not alarmist, but very persuasive warning. If he changed it to normal, he would definitely agree. But now it is different, because Kuzan is targeting him, so no matter what Kuzan said is right or not, he absolutely cannot take a step back at this time, because this is not just a simple debate, but a matter of face and merit. For the past, Sakazuki doesn't know much about it, but his own character is a bit paranoid. He can admit his mistakes, but he will never allow others to question him face to face. So, for the same question, what choice would you make? At first, everyone was attracted by Kuzan's words and agreed, especially Zephyr. Kuzan was his most promising disciple, so he felt that Kuzan was helping him out, and he said it was very beautiful. Of course, he strongly recognized it. But when he saw that Sakazuki threw the same question to Kuzan, his face suddenly became gloomy. He couldn't answer this question, but Sakazuki asked Kuzan to answer it. Isn't this deliberately making things difficult? For a moment, Zephyr, who was originally dissatisfied with Sakazuki, became even more disgusted in his heart. He had already disapproved from political opinions and turned into disapproval of Sakazuki's entire character. But as the person being asked, Kuzan did not panic, instead replied calmly, I will choose the first one. This answer surprised everyone. Choosing the first one is to agree with Sakazuki's approach. Not only was other people surprised, even Sakazuki himself was surprised, but he was different from other people's thinking, and he felt that Kuzan would definitely not be just such a simple answer. Sure enough, Kuzan went on to say in the next sentence, however, after winning, I will choose to admit my mistakes, and solemnly apologize to all those who have been injured by myself and accept punishment. Perfect, really perfect. Everyone has a different face. Kuzan's answer is really very beautiful. He agreed that he must be cruel during the war, but at the same time telling Sakazuki that he must admit his mistakes instead of gaining credit here. All in all, Kuzan's words clarify one point, he still supports Zephyr. According to you, do I have to apologize publicly and have to accept severe punishment? Sakazuki stared at Kuzan and asked word by word. Kuzan said faintly, I am just expressing my opinion. It is not up to me to decide how to do it. Hopefully. Sakazuki snorted disdainfully. Sakazuki, as a vice admiral, knowing mistakes and correcting them is the right way. Do I have to teach you about this? Zephyr shouted. Sakazuki looked at Zephyr coldly. He really didn't expect that when he was reading the manga before, Aokiji was taciturn, but now he is so talkative and sharp, which really subverted his vision and made him have to convince him. However, although he admits that Kuzan's timing and word front are very sharp, he wants to make him make such a decision. He is simply hitting him in the face and apologizing publicly. How he will lead his subordinates in the future, I am afraid that there will be no one at that time. Trust him. What if I disagree? Boom. Zephyr suddenly slapped the table hard and shouted, as a soldier, it is your duty to obey orders. Are you trying to despise the law? Humph. Sakazuki snorted coldly, and said, although you are admiral, I am just a vice admiral, but in any case, it is not your turn to convict me. You are wrong when you say that I am wrong. Isn't that naval headquarters? You alone have the final say? He is really unfamiliar with the laws of naval headquarters, but Marine Vice Admiral is also a Marine senior, especially a young Vice Admiral with potential like him. Even if Zephyr is Admiral, it is impossible to have the right to convict him directly. After all, Zephyr is not mainly in charge of the military, but logistics and education. In fact, it's true. Today's naval headquarters only have 2 admiral. Zephyr doesn't ask about the military. The military is dominated by Sengoku, but even Sengoku can't convict Vice Admiral casually. This is martial marine power. However, after Zephyr heard Sakazuki's sarcasm, his emotions exploded completely. The whole person stood up, his aura exploded, and pointed to Sakazuki and shouted, presumptuous. Seeing that Zephyr was out of state, the emptiness sitting in the main seat had to dissuade him, but Zephyr was already out of control, and he immediately shouted, bastards, not only do they kill their companions, but they also have no law. What's wrong with people like you? Qualifications. Ms. Zephyr. But before he could finish his scolding, Sakazuki suddenly yelled, an overbearing aura erupted from his body and rushed towards Zephyr, but when the aura was about to rush in front of Zephyr, he suddenly stopped. However, the few people closest to Sakazuki, Garp, Sengoku, and the 2 Marine Vice Admiral behind him, all changed their faces. Garp jumped up like an electric shock, and shouted in an incredible tone, Conqueror's haki? With Garp's loud shout, the meeting room that was about to burst suddenly silenced, and everyone's eyes turned to Garp. Sora was planning to persuade him, but when he heard Garp's yell, he asked in astonishment, Garp, what's the matter with you? And Garp also asked in astonishment, don't you feel it? The power that Sakazuki burst out just now? Sengoku was the first to say, I feel it, it can't be wrong, it should be Conqueror's haki. At the same time, the 2 Marine Vice Admiral seats under Sakazuki also said, yes, I also feel it, the same haki as Garp Vice Admiral, it should be Conqueror's haki. As for the people on the other side, including Zephyr, they all looked at each other, but they didn't feel anything. The others, even Sakazuki himself, were surprised by Garp's cry, because Garp was staring at him when he yelled Conqueror's haki, and there was no doubt that he was talking about him. But the problem is that he didn't know what was going on. He just felt a wave of anger and dissatisfaction in his heart, and then shouted angrily at Zephyr, as if something broke out to make him comfortable. A lot. Could it be Conqueror's haki? He doesn't suspect Garp's mistakes. He knows that he really owns Conqueror's haki because he just exchanged it. Although he doesn't know if the system in his mind is the so-called system, he doesn't doubt it. Authenticity, it must be real and effective. It's just strange that he hasn't figured out Conqueror's haki. How could it be used by him without warning? But he himself didn't feel any difference. Heir to Garp asked. Garp, are you sure? He didn't feel it himself, so he could only ask Garp, and he was really weird. If both Garp and Sengoku felt it, why didn't he notice it? He is no stranger to Conqueror's haki. If it's really Conqueror's haki, he shouldn't be unable to feel it. Seeing other people's expressions of astonishment, obviously they didn't feel it either. It's just him alone, but so many people are like this. Isn't it weird? Garp himself was surprised when he heard Sora's question. He clearly felt it, and it was definitely not wrong. It was Conqueror's haki. But why Sora didn't feel it? Only the closest person to Sakazuki, Sengoku, and the two Marines. Did Vice Admiral feel it? He and Sengoku glanced at each other, and then he was puzzled but surely said, it is Conqueror's haki that just broke out of Sakazuki. This is absolutely not wrong. As for why you didn't feel it, I think it was Sakazuki just now. Awakening haki, I can't control it yet, so. But the tone of his speech is not as confident as he used to be, because he himself is also wondering. It stands to reason that even if he has just awakened, he should not have only this range. At least everyone in this room can feel it, right? But doubts turn to doubts. Conqueror's haki can't be faked, and Garp is 100% sure. The reactions of Garp, Sora and others also made Sakazuki faintly guess a possibility, but this possibility was so surprising that he himself felt untrue. First of all, he did own Conqueror's haki. Recalling his reaction just now, it was the first time he unconsciously inspired Conqueror's haki. As for this Conqueror's haki, he certainly did not own it, but bought it with fear value of. In this way, 1,000 points of fear will start Conqueror's haki, which is indeed a great benefit, but Sakazuki is not so optimistic. The reason is simple. Only 4 people felt the Conqueror's haki that he just broke out. These 4 people were all in front and behind him. In addition, even the person opposite him didn't feel it, and he was only far away from him. Only the width of a conference table, no more than 4 meters at most. In other words, his Conqueror's haki didn't even reach the range of 4 meters. Then, after carefully recalling the changes before and after buying haki fruit, he was impressed by the prompt after eating the haki fruit. When the first one was eaten, the last prompt was *1, and the second one was eaten. When it is *2. Comparing the current situation and thinking about it carefully, he feels that the number behind this is not simple, it should be the limit of his own Conqueror's haki. 1 represents 1 meter, and 2 represents 2 meters. It is precisely because his Conqueror's haki has a limited range that only 4 people feel his haki, while the rest of the people who are more than 2 meters away from him do not feel Conqueror's haki. Although it was just a guess, he was already 99% sure that it must be so. This is also true, he is not so optimistic. Buying 1 haki fruit with 1,000 fear value can increase the range by 1 meter. Then, if you want to reach 100 meters, don't you have to buy 100 haki fruit and exchange it? That is 100,000 fear value. The pit, it's really a huge pit. Recalling a war just now, he caused such a big movement and only got a few thousand fear points. When he wants to reach 100,000 fear points, when will it be? Is it true that he really wants him Tenten not to do anything, just to study how to scare people? Sure enough, there are no such cheap things in the world. Even cheat can't be invincible when it comes up. It's just that my limit is a bit too big, right? Sakazuki hasn't fully figured out his own system yet, so Sakazuki doesn't know how to evaluate it, but he just murmured to himself. In fact, there is no loss or depression. He has crossed into Akainu, and he has already reached the sky in 1 step. There is still this potential system that I don't know how to evaluate, and it will inevitably become stronger and stronger in the future. What is there to complain about? Just think of other people who have Conqueror's haki. When haki is released, all the enemies fall to the ground, and when haki is released, the enemy has no reaction at all. No, I have to improve haki as soon as possible. If I haven't improved, I can't let it go again, otherwise it would be too shameful. Affirmed by Garp and Sengoku, the faces of the marine executives present became very strange, excited, suspicious, depressed, and unbelievable, among which Zephyr was the most unacceptable. Sora asked Sakazuki excitedly, Sakazuki, have you really awakened Conqueror's haki? Don't blame Sora for excitement, because Conqueror's haki is so rare, Only Garp owns the marine, and Sakazuki, who is already very strong, will surely increase his potential if he really awakens Conqueror's haki. It can be the pillar of marine, just like Garp. Sakazuki replied, I don't know what's going on, but it should be correct. Very good. Sora yelled happily. As Martial Marine, he is naturally the one who wants Marine to grow. The older generation has Garp, and the new generation has Sakazuki, who has awakened Conqueror's haki. God is blessing Marine. Zephyr felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. He just pushed Sakazuki to a dead end, but Sakazuki awakened Conqueror's haki, and now there is no need to say anything. Marine can't punish him anymore, unless his brain is broken. Otherwise it will only pay more attention to Sakazuki. How is it possible? Your physical fitness has been developed to this level, how can you still awaken Conqueror's haki? You should not have this kind of qualification. I was depressed, and Zephyr really couldn't understand. He is already 30 years old, and normal people are almost stereotyped. People who normally possess this kind of aptitude have almost awakened Conqueror's haki when they were in their teens. He was more than 10 years old, but he only awakened Conqueror's haki when he was in his early 30s like Sakazuki, and his momentum was still so big, it was the first time. Sakazuki said lightly. This question is about to ask you. What? Zephyr didn't understand what Sakazuki meant. Sakazuki said, thanks to your help from Teacher Zephyr, I was able to awaken Conqueror's haki. Upon hearing this, Zephyr's face suddenly became very ugly, and everyone else in the meeting room had strange expressions, because this was not wrong. Just now Sakazuki indeed suddenly awakened Conqueror's haki, saying that it was because Zephyr did not, for too much. This can also awaken haki. The several Marine Vice Admirals sitting at the end looked at each other, and then looked at Zephyr with weird eyes. Since Sakazuki was forced to awaken Conqueror's haki by Zephyr, are they okay? But this idea was then thrown away by them. This kind of thing is not so simple. First of all, you have to have this talent. Several of them think that they are not as good as Sakazuki. What's more, Zephyr is a Marine Admiral, there is no courage to provoke. But Paluzolino screamed. Oh, then, according to that, Teacher Zephyr has also done a lot for our Marine, inspiring Sakazuki's Conqueror's haki. Zephyr was already furious, and when he heard Paluzolino's words, he roared angrily, shut up. Paluzolino shrugged and said, if you don't tell me, does it need such a temper? Do you want to help me inspire conquerors? Zephyr's face suddenly looked like a black pot, and I have to say that Paluzolino is really cruel. Alright. Knocked down the table heavily and stopped all the discussion. Zephyr could only sit back to his original position unwillingly, and the meeting room was quiet again. Everyone was sitting in distress, but everyone's eyes were still unreliable. Sakazuki's body, today's Sakazuki, gave them too much shock. I have already thought about the punishment of Sakazuki, just as Sengoku said, the merits and demerits are equal, no reward or punishment. No one has raised the meaning of this decision, even Zephyr, because Sakazuki has awakened Conqueror's haki, and his status has been improved a lot. It can be said that he will become admiral in the future. Even if it is his current admiral, it's also hard to move. But Sora's next sentence was to shock everyone. However, starting today, Sakazuki has been selected as an admiral candidate for a 2-year investigation period. If there is no major change after 2 years, he can be promoted to Marine Admiral to make up for the gap in Admiral's position. The words Admiral Alternate seemed to have magical powers, attracting everyone. Everyone looked at Empty in amazement. Although Admiral Alternate is only an alternate, it is not a real admiral, but its status are undoubtedly higher than the General Marine Vice Admiral. More importantly, there is the qualification to be promoted to Marine Admiral, which is far behind the other Marine Vice Admiral. However, the Admiral candidate is not something that anyone can do. Among the naval headquarters, Marine Admiral is currently only Sengoku and Zephyr. There have been no suitable candidates for the spare positions, although there are many powerful vices in Marine Admiral, but they don't have the peak power and prestige, so this position has been vacant. As for the Marine Admiral candidate, there is currently only one person in the entire Marine, and that is Paluzolino. He was appointed as an Admiral candidate not long ago, but his Admiral candidate inspection period is 5 years, while Akainu only has 2 years. A person with a discerning eye can tell which is higher and lower. The first few people, such as Sengoku, Garp and Crane, did not respond. Although Zephyr was full of sullen expression, he did not object. Paluzolino is smiling but not smiling, but when he looks at Sakazuki, his eyes are obviously reluctant to lose. He is not Kizaru 20 years later, he has not become admiral, and his natural mentality cannot be so casual. Sakazuki was a seaman in the same period, but also a monster, so naturally there was competition. He became admiral's candidate before Sakazuki because he was a little older, and his life was a little smoother than Sakazuki, but his investigation period was 5 years, and now it is only the 2nd year, and Sakazuki's investigation period is only 2 years, so maybe Sakazuki will become admiral one step faster than him, so he is naturally not convinced. As for the rest, including Kuzan, they all looked at Sakazuki with envious eyes. This is an admiral candidate. As long as there is no accident in the middle, 2 years later, Sakazuki will definitely be Marine Admiral, and then they will be their boss. Command Marine, the most powerful figure except Marshal Marine. In addition to envy, they also have other thoughts, but they are in the meeting at this time, so no one expresses them. In addition, the pirates of the Golden Lion and the Flying Pirates were all imprisoned. Among them, the Golden Lion and the other heinous pirates were all sent to impel down. When talking about Golden Lion and others, Sora's face became very cold. This time Golden Lion really caused great losses to naval headquarters. This was the first time someone openly attacked naval headquarters, even if they got it. Victory, undeniable, was still beaten in the face. Such incidents will soon be spread, and the pirates of New World will inevitably be even more unscrupulous at that time. This is where Sora worries the most. In order to curb the pirates' momentum, we have previously set a method to execute Roger publicly. The location is in East Blue's Logue Town. This public execution must be used to let the whole world know the fate of becoming a pirate. Even the so-called One Piece, they can only die in the hands of our Marine in the end. Since Roger came to Marine to surrender not long ago, after many days of research and discussion, Naval Headquarters has decided to execute Roger's public punishment worldwide, and finally agreed to Roger's request, and set the location of the public execution in East Blue's Logue Town. Kong's idea is very clear. It is to use this public execution to inform the world. One Piece Roger will be executed in the end, so people who want to become a pirate should think carefully. Roger's end will be your future end. Regarding the public execution, this is the most important action of Naval Headquarters next, so it is natural to be extra careful when discussing it. With Sora as the head, Sengoku and others have launched discussions. This matter is of great importance and must be foolproof. Only then can they rest assured. Listening to these people's discussions, Sakazuki's expression remained the same, but he shook his head a little regretfully. They probably didn't know that Roger chose to surrender because he died soon, and most importantly, he wanted to use your last life to guide the whole world. So, this time of public execution, from the beginning to the end, was actually in Roger's calculations. Marine's self-righteous leeway completely fulfilled Roger, allowing him to open the ocean that lasted for more than 20 years. The era of thieves. Although he already knew all this, Sakazuki was not prepared to say it, not because he was not loyal to Marine, but it was useless to say it. What would he say then? Say he has the ability to be a prophet. So guess what Roger thought? All of this is unrealistic. It's not wrong to say how much a person's ability and responsibility are. Now he is only Marine Vice Admiral. It is not his turn to make such a decision at the highest level, so even what he said was useless. To be honest, even Sakazuki had to admit that the public execution was indeed a manifestation of the maximization of Roger's role. The public execution of One Piece was an unprecedented blow to the pirates. In this move, the Naval Headquarters was not wrong, but they met a stronger opponent. Roger finally stunned to blaze a path in desperation, creating the era of the great pirates. So even Sakazuki, who is now Marine Vice Admiral, can only sigh in his heart that Roger's greatness, not his strength, but his ingenuity and courage is even more amazing. On this issue, Sakazuki didn't struggle for long. This matter was mainly planned by Sora and Sengoku, so they were only executors and did not need to express their opinions. So Sakazuki continued his research. He returned to the main interface and saw that his balance had risen a little bit and became 6,723. He didn't need to look at the prompt message to know that it must be provided to him by the captured pirates. He exchanged 4 haki fruits in a row, all of which were conqueror's haki, so his conqueror's haki suddenly became *6. Then he exchanged another haki fruit belonging to armament haki, which was the same as the fruit of conqueror's haki, but after he ate it, the hint was different. Armament haki is improved by taking 1 fruit of haki. No, it's just such a simple reminder that made Sakazuki very speechless. Okay, conqueror's haki was followed by a number anyway, why armament haki simply got promoted and disappeared. In terms of change, that is, at the moment when the fruit is eaten, there is a very slight feeling, other than that, there is no other reaction. The unbeliever Sakazuki bought another haki fruit, this time the fruit of observation haki. Taking 1 piece of haki fruit, observation haki is improved. The same prompt as armament haki, but also the same lack of response, so that he didn't know what to say, he would have bought the fruit of conqueror's haki. I only saw the prompt, without real feeling. It's just that now there is no fear value and continue to buy. He now only has 723 fear points left, and then he clicks on the lottery center. The lottery center is different from the shop. There is nothing to choose from. There is only one lottery roulette, and there are densely packed symbols on the roulette, and it is difficult to see what it is. There is a circular start button in the middle. 100 fear points were drawn at a time, and now he still has 723, so he didn't mean to save, so he just clicked to start. After clicking start, the roulette wheel on the interface turned suddenly, and still couldn't see anything. After spinning for a while, it didn't mean to stop, so Sakazuki couldn't help but yelled to stop. Sure enough, the roulette wheel was slowly decelerated and stopped quickly. Thank you for participation. Sakazuki looked astonished. What's the situation? Is this really a system? Shouldn't the system help you become stronger and bigger? Why is there a thank you for participating in this option? 100 points of fear was lost in this way, but Sakazuki had no choice but to click again to start. Anyway, he still has a few hundred points, but he has to see what happens next. Smoke, 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 I smoke. He smoked 3 more times in a row. What embarrassed him was that it was 3 more times. Thank you for participating. He almost couldn't help but lift the table in front of him. Can he still play? Finally, on the 5th time, what he finally drew was no longer thank you for your participation, but something like a card. Congratulations on winning a loyalty card, which has been deposited in the backpack. Looking at the picture of the loyalty card in his backpack, Sakazuki chose to extract it. Suddenly, he had an extra card-like card in his hand. The front of the card was a man with a crown, and a group of people were kneeling under him. On the reverse side, there are 3 words for loyalty card. What is this thing? Just having this question, a reminder popped up in Sakazuki's mind. Loyalty card. Make the target loyal to the user. Use method. Select the target and use it directly. This card can make others loyal to yourself? So smart? After getting the hint, Sakazuki was very surprised. This small card is so powerful. After selecting the target and using it, can the opponent be loyal to him? Although he felt that the system couldn't be exaggerated, he still didn't believe it, so he turned his eyes to Garp next to him, chose Garp as the target, and used it silently in his heart. Failed to use loyalty card. Sakazuki is confused again. Can this thing fail to use? He used it again without believing in evil, but it still failed to prompt, and then he chose other people in the conference room. What made him unbelievable was that he used it for everyone here, but it was all prompts. Fail. Damn, isn't this a fake? Will the system give fakes too? If it is a failure, it's fine, but all the uses have failed. This is a big problem. He directly suspected that he had got a fake, so he asked the system, but unfortunately, he didn't get any reply. I really don't know what to say. Now he not only suspects that the loyalty card is a fake, even the system he thinks may be fake, but the haki fruit he got before is real, and it is also useful. Now the loyalty card has been failed to use, it may be that he used it. The method is wrong, or the selected goal is wrong. At any rate, it was also drawn by the system lottery, and there should be no fakes. Sakazuki could only comfort himself in this way. For the 6th lottery draw, it is still hopeless. Thank you for participating. In the last draw left, Sakazuki almost yelled at what was drawn. Congratulations on winning a donut, which has been deposited in the backpack. At first I heard that it was not thank you for participating. Sakazuki was still happy, but when he saw that the thing he had drawn was a donut, the whole person was not good. What the hell, and the donut thing? A little depressed, he took out the donuts from his backpack, which was a whole bag of donuts. He opened it under the table, and then took a slice and tasted it in his mouth. It turned out to be a real donut. It took 100 fear points and finally only got a donut. This is more depressing than the one drawn. Thank you for participating. But Sakazuki didn't notice that when he took out the donut, Garp's eyes were green when sitting above him, especially after seeing him eat a piece. Garp even turned his body around. Sakazuki, everyone is in a meeting. Why are you stealing food here? The sound is very small, obviously not wanting to alarm other people. Taking a look at Garp, Sakazuki curled his lips and put the donut in his hand directly in front of him. Take it. Garp's eyes lit up. He took it over without any kind of courtesy, and said, Sakazuki, you are a good kid, I am very optimistic about you. Sakazuki didn't care. He knew Garp was a big foodie, and he wasn't very interested in desserts, so he gave it to Garp directly. After smoking the donuts, in the end he only had 23 fear points left. He couldn't do anything. He was thinking about how to get the fear points as fast as possible. The fear points needed others to be afraid of him. This is not an easy thing to do. In fact, there is one place where it is easier to get the fear value, and that is the prison. However, he is now the magnificent Marine Vice Admiral and an Admiral candidate. It is impossible to be assigned to the prison. Therefore, if you want to get the fear value, you can only think about it. Other methods. After a while, Kong, who was sitting at the top, suddenly yelled angrily, Garp, who let you eat here? It turned out that Garp was eating donuts and was discovered, which made the original serious meeting suddenly become embarrassing. Kong yelled at Garp angrily, and Garp was a dead pig who was not afraid of boiling water, and stood up to everyone. Looking at him, he ate a whole pack of donuts. At the end of the meeting, everyone left the meeting room. Humph. When Zephyr passed Sakazuki, he snorted very uncomfortably, and then walked away quickly, making Sakazuki also unhappy. You don't want to see me, I don't want to see you yet. For Zephyr, Sakazuki also saw clearly. The other party should have seen him uncomfortable a long time ago. Today it was just an excuse to play, but he turned back, causing their relationship to become even worse. Zephyr Admiral is very vengeful, Sakazuki Vice Admiral, you have to be careful in the future. Suddenly a sound rang in his ears. Sakazuki turned his head and looked, and saw that the Marine Vice Admiral who was sitting at the bottom of him was looking at him kindly. This person had the same marine coat with an X scar under his left eye. Sakazuki, who didn't inherit his own memory, didn't know much about this Marine Vice Admiral, but the other party reminded him, undoubtedly like him, so he was also more polite. Kaido, thank you for reminding. Seeing that Sakazuki's attitude is very good, the other party is obviously very happy, and immediately said, congratulations, Sakazuki Vice Admiral has awakened conquerors and has become an admiral alternate. If possible, find a place to drink 2 glasses. This was the first Marine executive to show his promise, so Sakazuki would naturally not refuse, and then the two left together. After leaving the meeting room, the other party led the way, Sakazuki followed. They did not go far, but found a place in the naval headquarters base. Through drinking and chatting, Sakazuki also knew the identity of this person. It turned out to be Doberman, which was the second only to Marine Admiral in Marine, Vice Admiral, who was also a well-known figure. During the war, when Marine Admiral participated in the war, he had full command of the Marine Army and his status was very high. The reason why Doberman showed his favor is that this person also belongs to the Hawks in Marine, and is also an iron-blooded soldier. He became Marine Vice Admiral at a young age, which shows that he is also very talented. He does not belong to the line of Sengoku and Zephyr. Sakazuki's attitude and behavior made him agree very much, and Sakazuki will definitely be promoted to Marine Admiral in the future, so he showed his favor. Facing Doberman's favor, Sakazuki certainly wouldn't refuse. This is also a great man, and his political opinions are consistent. Pulling into his camp will only benefit him. Now he is at odds with Zephyr. With Zephyr's position in naval headquarters, many generals come from his sect. Offending Zephyr is equivalent to offending a large group of people, so you must strengthen your own strength. Doberman, such a good relationship with the real power Marine Vice Admiral is undoubtedly a very important and a big help. Although Doberman did not say clearly, his attitude has shown that as long as Sakazuki becomes Admiral, he will immediately become attached. Although this is based on the condition of becoming Marine Admiral, Sakazuki doesn't care at all. After all, they are both now Marine Vice Admiral, he is not qualified enough to make people loyal. Under Sakazuki's deliberate guidance, Doberman also talked about a lot of naval headquarters, and Sakazuki, who didn't know much about it, immediately became familiar with it. The two talked for 3 hours, which can be said to be very agreeable. Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Early the next morning, Sakazuki saw Lucas Benioff when he got up. He now knows that Lieutenant Colonel Lucas is a soldier under his command, equivalent to a personal soldier, and is mainly responsible for daily life and guarding. Has been with him for nearly 6 years. The impression of Lucas is still very good, and he doesn't know what he should do now, so he asks, Lucas, what do you want to do today? As a soldier, these things are naturally within the scope of Lucas's work. He immediately replied, there is nothing important today, but you are selected to go to East Blue Log Town, so you will need to bring your troops 3 days later. Go to East Blue. If Sakazuki Vice Admiral has nothing to do on his own, he can go to the training ground. The Ghost Spider Rear Admiral is training soldiers. The Ghost Spider Sakazuki knows, but he didn't expect this to be his lieutenant, but it is not surprising to think about it, because the Ghost Spider is also a hawk in Marine, and it is normal to follow him to be more powerful. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, here you are. Sakazuki was led by Lucas to a training field at naval headquarters. At this moment, there were hundreds of soldiers in the training field. When he saw him coming, he stood by and watched. Marine Rear Admiral, wearing a Marine uniform and a justice coat. He walked quickly in front of him and greeted respectfully. As the only Marine Rear Admiral under his command, Sakazuki naturally doesn't need to think about it. This Marine Rear Admiral, who seems to be about 30 years old, is his capable subordinate, the Ghost Spider, and 20 years later is also a famous Marine Vice Admiral. The real name of the Ghost Spider is not the Ghost Spider, but because he has practiced the ability to return life in Marine to a very high level, he can control the hair and body at will, and every time he fights, he will appear similar to the Spider Claws. He has a black arm and uses 8 knives at the same time, so not many people know his real name. Everyone is familiar with his title, Ghost Spider. In naval headquarters, most people call Ghost Spiders this way, and Sakazuki does the same. What were the casualties of our soldiers in the battle yesterday? Through the chat with Doberman yesterday, and the side attack on Lucas when he came back, he also learned about the naval headquarters system and his own situation. What makes him more fortunate is that the former Sakazuki was originally a cold temper. He basically didn't have many friends, so he didn't have a circle, and there were not many people who could deal with. He basically didn't have to worry about being suspicious of himself. Then, as long as he stays the same as before, try to avoid communicating with others, there will be no problem after a while. Now he is the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters, so what he cares most about is Marine's system and situation. Fortunately, Doberman and loyal Lucas who have delivered to the door have basically mastered the situation. Naval Headquarters is the strongest military force under the world government system, and its system specifications are also quite strict and complicated. In the entire Naval Headquarters, there is only Marshal Marine who is qualified to mobilize all Marines. Even Marine Admiral with the highest combat power is not qualified to mobilize all Marines at will. Mobilize 1/3 of the Marine Army. However, because there are only 2 Admiral in Naval Headquarters, and Zephyr retreats to the second line, Admiral Sengoku's power is very large. In addition to air, Sengoku can mobilize more than half of the army. In addition to Naval Headquarters, the branch's army it can also be dispatched at will. But even Marine Admiral cannot easily own its own army. Marine Admiral can form 3,000 troops loyal to it, but there are also specifications. Marine Vice Admiral directly under its command cannot exceed 2 persons, and Rear Admiral cannot exceed 5 persons. Commodore cannot exceed 10 people, and the rest of the school-level officers are free. The 3,000 troops means that apart from their Commander Admiral, only Marshal Marine is qualified to dispatch, and the rest Marine Admiral is not qualified to direct orders, unless it is approved by that Admiral. This is Marine Admiral's privileges. You can have your own troops. In addition to Marine Admiral, Marine Vice Admiral can also form its own troops, but the specifications are much smaller. It can only have an army of 500 people at most. It can only be equipped with 1 Marine Rear Admiral, 2 Marine Commodores, and 10. A school-level officer. Of course, those Marine Vice Admiral who belong to Marine Admiral private soldiers are not included. The officers under Marine Vice Admiral do not have the qualifications to form a private army, but this does not mean that their power is not good. In addition to being unable to form a private army, they also have a lot of power. Rear Admiral has no problem mobilizing an army of more than 1,000 people. The formation of a private army is only the privilege of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and Marine Admiral, which can also be said to be a confidant. As for the Marine Branch Vice Admiral outside of Naval Headquarters, it does not have this power. How many people are there now in Vice Admiral, which belongs to Naval Headquarters? There are no more than 30 people, so compared to the huge base of Marine soldiers, the number of these private troops is really nothing, but more of a status symbol and privilege. As for Marshal Marine, it is not in this list, because all the Marines in the world are under the command of Marshal Marine, so there is no need for the so-called private army. However, it is undeniable that Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, which belongs to Marine Admiral, is more powerful than the rest of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral because it belongs to Marine Admiral's confidant. After all, they have Marine Admiral as a backer, except Marine Admiral. In addition to the Marshal, the rest of Marine Admiral are not qualified to order and punish them. Just like Marine Admiral Sengoku, he now has 2 Marine Vice Admiral confidants under his command. One is Garp. Of course, this is nominal. In fact, Garp is only Vice Admiral, but in fact his status are not worse than Marine Admiral. Even higher, he can only be regarded as hanging under the name of Sengoku. In addition to Garp, the other is Marine Vice Admiral, who was sitting across from Sakazuki in the previous meeting room. He turned out to be the deputy of Sengoku. Now he is second only to 2 rookies with great potential, Peluzolino. I guess his status is higher than the average Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral. As for the other Marine Admiral Zephyr, because he has retreated to the second line, he does not have his own private army, and now the Marine Vice Admiral who follows him is only the rising star Kuzan. The reason why Doberman had a good relationship with him yesterday is also due to this. Doberman was also a soldier from the bottom, so he knows the importance of backing, but Sengoku and Zephyr can no longer rely on him. Russolino felt unreliable, so this time he had the title of Admiral Alternate, and the 2 people had similar understanding of justice. Doberman approached. There is only one purpose. I hope that after he becomes Marine Admiral, he can earn him under his command. Now I can't say it clearly. It's just because the 2 of them have the same status, and both are Marine Vice Admiral. Naturally, there is no refuge, and it can only be regarded as a good relationship. Now Sakazuki is Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, and is not directly affiliated with Sengoku and Zephyr, so he naturally has his own private army, an army of 500 people, and the Ghost Spider is the first person under his command, Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral. Because of the battle with the Fikong pirates yesterday, the Ghost Spider also took the private army into the battle, so he asked this. The Ghost Spider replied. 18 people were lost in the battle yesterday, 13 people were sacrificed, 5 people were seriously injured, and many others were slightly injured, but it was not a major problem. Today we participate in training normally. Sakazuki nodded and said, the victims are buried well, and the pension that should be doubled will be deducted from my account. The same is true for the seriously injured. As for the 18 people who are missing, I will wait later. You go and give orders to the quartermaster department and pick a suitable candidate to fill it up. As a regular army, the casualties of soldiers are pensioned, and because it is his own private soldier, Sakazuki of course must be treated specially, double the pension, which can be regarded as a kind of comfort and compensation. The Ghost Spider nodded sadly. The 500 private soldiers of Sakazuki were basically collected by Ghost Spiders and responsible for training and guidance. Therefore, his feelings for these soldiers are more than Sakazuki. This time he died 10 times. Several people, he is the most distressed one. It is not easy to train a soldier, and it is even more difficult to train an excellent and elite soldier. The 500 soldiers he trained, even if they are placed in the entire naval headquarters, are still the most elite group of people, so even if only a dozen people were lost, but it also makes Ghost Spiders very distressed. Private troops like Marine Vice Admiral and Marine Admiral, if there is a shortage of numbers, they can directly apply to the Logistics Department of Naval Headquarters, which is the Quartermaster Department, to apply for new recruits, and there are privileges that can be selected by themselves. Sakazuki didn't believe in the eyes of Ghost Spiders, he really didn't know how to pick people, so he directly handed this kind of trouble to Ghost Spiders. Marshal Kong has already ordered me to join the public execution escort, so you must also follow me to Logue Town. You have to be ready these few days to publicly execute Roger. This is a sensational event in the world. It is very likely that major changes will occur, so you must be fully prepared and not make any mistakes. In fact, if possible, Sakazuki didn't want to go to Logue Town too much. Roger's public execution did not have any major problems in the original version, but it was an anime after all. Now he is in the real world, who knows no accidents will happen. The public execution of Roger is indeed a sensational event in the world. This is a major ceremony, so it must be heavily guarded by the time, and his task will certainly not be light. This kind of hard work has no practical benefits. For him now, it is really not important, it is better to stay in Marine Base to get familiar with the situation and ability. But when the above order came down, he could only obey it, so he solemnly ordered the Ghost Spider. Sakazuki walked in front of the soldiers, and he found that the gazes these people looked at him revealed admiration and respect. As private soldiers, although they were still Marine, their allegiance was actually Sakazuki. All the damage is done, so now their allegiance has become admiral candidates, they are naturally very excited. He just showed up here, and then observed the training of these soldiers. I have to say that the training of the soldiers is really very strict. Running a few kilometers is just like playing, lifting weights, and other aspects. Train. In his opinion, if it is placed in the previous life of China, normal people can't stick to it at all, and only people with better physical fitness, such as Pirate World, can stick to this kind of training. Sakazuki did not stay here for long. After seeing the soldiers training seriously for a period of time, he turned and left the training ground, then asked Lucas to lead the way and took him around in the Marine Base. Because it was after the war, some parts of the Marine Base are still very dilapidated. Many soldiers have joined the post-war construction, so walking on the road, you can always see the busy Marines around. Fear from Lost Wood. +168. Sakazuki stopped abruptly and glanced around in amazement. He soon found a seaman looking at him in horror at the front right, but he hadn't waited for his confirmation. Fear score from Hunter Reeves. +212, from. Under Sakazuki's shocked expression, a series of 6 or 7 people appeared to provide him with fear points. There were more than 100, dozens, and more than 200, without exception, all of them were sea soldiers. Why do these soldiers provide me with fear points? After he pricked his ears and listened to their conversation, he understood why this was because the soldiers were talking about him. If you see it, that's Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Yesterday we were able to defeat the Flying Pirates group because of Sakazuki Vice Admiral. His move of lava meteors that fell from the sky destroyed the pirate ship and killed countless seas. Thief. Ah, is he Sakazuki Vice Admiral? I have heard that he killed many of us and was a murderer. Shut up. Do you want to die? If you are heard by Sakazuki Vice Admiral, you are dead. You all hurry up and stop talking. Sakazuki is the coldest one in Marine Vice Admiral. If you provoke him, you will be unlucky. That scene was really horrible, I have never seen such a horrible scene. After hearing these discussions, he fully understood what was going on. It turned out that these people were actually afraid of him because of yesterday's events, so he was provided with a fear value. In this blink of an eye, the fear value obtained will be broken. Thousands. This discovery made Sakazuki very happy. From yesterday to now, he has never forgotten how to get the fear value, but he has never had the opportunity and way. He didn't expect to plant flowers without intention, and unintentionally plant willows. At this time, it was unexpectedly there is a fear value. Sakazuki Vice Admiral, where are we going? Lucas asked. Sakazuki said, go to places with many people. Go to a crowded place. Lucas looked blank and didn't understand what it meant. He has been with Sakazuki for several years. Sakazuki has always been a quiet person. He basically doesn't go to places with many people, so he heard Sakazuki say to go. Where there are many people, he will be so surprised. Naturally, Sakazuki would not say clearly that he was going to a crowded place, just to let more people see him, and then remember what happened yesterday, and provide him with a fear value. This morning, Sakazuki took Lucas around at the Naval headquarters base. As expected, he walked around all morning, as if he was collecting money, and he went to the account 3 times. More than 1,000 points of fear value, but in the end, the increase in fear value becomes less and less. It's just that after he made 1 lap, he basically didn't receive much fear value on the second lap. In the whole morning, he gained more than 5,000 fear points, which is very big. As the fear value increased, Sakazuki also figured out a pattern. The fear value is not arbitrarily received. Only those who have seen him can provide him with fear value. He has only heard of him, but has not seen him. Even if someone is afraid of him, it will not provide him with a fear value. Therefore, with so many pirates and marines who were injured or killed by him yesterday, only a few hundred people provided him with fear points. At that time, he felt that something was wrong. Now it seems that there is a problem. Only those who have seen him being able to provide fear points. In this way, the way to obtain fear points is more difficult. On the second day, Sakazuki continued to take Lucas around in the naval headquarters base. Wherever there were many people, he went wherever he went, and sometimes stayed for a while, but he didn't talk to people. Just glanced at all the marines with a serious and cold expression. After yesterday's events, coupled with his own analysis later, Sakazuki understood that many of these ordinary soldiers were very afraid of him, so as long as he behaved coldly, he could more or less increase the opposition of others. His level of fear. I have to say that this is really very effective. In the case of his deliberately cold expression, the fear value has increased again. Although it is not as large as yesterday, it is better than the slow growth rate afterwards. Xiao, after walking around, he received more than 2,000 fear points. Really a bunch of cute and kind soldiers. Sakazuki was overjoyed as he watched the fear value continuously accruing, admiring the seamen who provided him with fear value. Just like that, he kept walking around, and didn't leave until he was eating. This abnormal behavior not only made Lucas very at a loss, but the officers who were commanding the soldiers were also very puzzled. This was completely different from the previous Sakazuki. Those officers who know Sakazuki may not know Sakazuki very well, but they know what kind of person he is. In the past, this Sakazuki Vice Admiral rarely wandered around the base. More often, they are all training soldiers on training grounds, or practicing by themselves. Being called a monster is not only a name for strength, but also a joke for his crazy and masochistic practice. So when they saw such a person, they changed their normals and wandered around, completely unable to understand. Although Sakazuki said that he was inspecting work, no one believed the key. You are the Vice Admiral of the military. This kind of thing about building a base. It's impossible to trouble you, it's not within the jurisdiction at all. Because Sakazuki inspected everywhere, many seamen were frightened, which caused the slow progress of the work, but Sakazuki did not pay attention to this at all. He only cared about the growth of his fear value. The increase in fear value in the 2 days has changed from 23 points to 8,764 points now, and it has increased by more than 8,000 points in 2 days. This result makes Sakazuki very excited. If this is the case, go shopping more. In a few days, it will definitely be no problem to exceed 10,000, but no matter how much you want, it is probably not realistic. In just 2 days, everyone's fear of him has slowly diminished. In a few days, it is estimated that except for a small number of people, those soldiers will no longer be afraid of him. After all, a person's fear time is also limited. When Tenten saw the situation, and was not threatened, naturally he would not continue to fear. So Sakazuki knows very well that it is impossible to earn fear points from these soldiers for a long time. It can only be regarded as a one-shot deal, unless he does something big, but this is impossible. Is it necessary to let him? Are you making trouble in the naval headquarters base? Sakazuki's idea was good. He wanted to earn fear points as soon as possible, but when he was about to continue his inspection on the 3rd morning, an accident happened. Sakazuki. I received a lot of complaints yesterday, saying that you wandered around the previous 2 days, causing a lot of chaos and affecting the progress of the base construction. What is going on? In Marshal Marine's office, Sora asked Sakazuki very uncomprehendingly. Yesterday, when he received the complaint, he was very shocked, and there was more than one officer who complained. After a rough count, there were more than a dozen people. All of them said that Sakazuki had affected their work. As soon as Sakazuki appeared, the soldiers' work. It slowed down, so I hope he can solve this matter. I thought it was a trivial matter, but I didn't expect so many people to complain. This made Sora really a little embarrassed. What's the situation? So he called Sakazuki over early this morning and wanted to ask what was going on and what caused his abnormality. After Sakazuki heard Sora's question, his whole person was also a little stunned. He got up early in the morning, but was about to collect another wave of fear points, but he unexpectedly was called by Sora and asked such a question. How does this make him answer? Could it be that it was to make everyone afraid of him, so I went there? Isn't it just for scolding? I'm going to inspect their work, Marshal. You may not know if you haven't been there. Some soldiers are too lazy. According to their progress, I don't know when they will be able to restore the base. As Vice Admiral, I naturally have the responsibility to urge them. After I went to inspect, their enthusiasm for work has improved a lot. Although he felt astonished, he had also been in the workplace in his previous life. Facing this kind of thing, he would not be unfamiliar, and he naturally said his reasons. However, Sora didn't eat his style at all. He stroked his forehead with his wide palm and asked, Sakazuki, have you been stimulated in the past few days? How come your behavior is completely different from before? In his impression, Sakazuki is not a person who can speak well, not to mention that after a picture like this is exposed, he can still maintain a righteous and awe-inspiring attitude. Just kidding, you go to inspect and improve the progress. If there are not so many people complaining, he would really believe it, but now, who to believe? He still hasn't counted it in his mind. Sakazuki didn't panic, and said calmly, Marshal, I was not stimulated, but I thought it might be too serious before, so I'm trying to change it. I'm also a Marine Vice Admiral anyway. I'll interact with the soldiers. No problem, right? I waved my hand and said, okay, I don't care what irritation you are. It is good for you to try to make changes, but it can't affect other people, understand? You will follow the troops to east tomorrow. Blue, stop wandering around today and integrate your people. Sakazuki felt very depressed before he had time to implement the itinerary plan, but he had to obey Sora's orders, but he did not go to the training ground, but returned to his residence. Originally, he was planning to accumulate a little more fear value and then buy it all at once, but the plan couldn't keep up with the changes, so he could only buy the fear value he already had. With more than 8,000 fear values, he could also buy a few haki fruits. Fear score from Hunter Reeves. +18. Sakazuki, who was about to buy haki fruit, was taken aback after receiving the prompt, and then he received the fear points of 2 people. Although it was only 5 and 8 points, it was also the fear value. These guys, I didn't show up, and they gave me the fear value on time, but it was a little bit low. With a wry smile, Sakazuki didn't need to think about it to know what was going on. It must have been that he always went to the place where the soldiers were 2 days ago, which brought them inertia, so even if he hasn't gone today, but those people also gave it to him. He provided the fear value, which shows that there is still some fear in their hearts. But after being happy, he became even more depressed, and he could get fear points if he didn't go. If he went, he would definitely get more. Sporadic fear values increased. Sakazuki's consciousness entered the store and began to buy haki fruits. This time he directly purchased 8 haki fruits at once, all of which were Conqueror's haki fruits. As for the haki fruit of armed color and seeing and hearing color, he is not ready to buy it for the time being, because he has not fully controlled these 2 powers. This is the ability of his predecessor, which is different from Conqueror's haki, which uses the system to awaken. He needs him. Slowly become familiar and control, but it is not the time yet. Take 1 haki fruit, Conqueror's haki 7, take 1 haki fruit. Taking. With 8 haki fruits, plus the 6 he ate before, his Conqueror's haki has now reached a range of 14 meters, which is a huge improvement, and there is no need to be as embarrassed as the previous 2 meters. After purchasing 8 haki fruits, plus the increasing fear points, he now has 915 fear points left. A lottery is coming again. 915 fear points are not enough to buy haki fruit, so Sakazuki is going to have another lottery to see his luck. Thank you for participation. Thank you for participation. Thank you for participation. Thank you for participation. Congratulations on winning a loyalty card, which has been deposited in the backpack. Thank you for participating 4 times in a row. Only the 5th time I got a loyalty card, which was exactly the same as the last time, which made him very unhappy and took another 4 consecutive times. Thank you for participation. Thank you for participation. Congratulations on winning a senbei, which has been deposited in the backpack. Congratulations on drawing a bursting charm, which has been deposited in the backpack. For the last 2 times, I was lucky. I won the items in a row, but one of them was the food senbei. It was not much different from not being drawn. It was the bursting charm that was drawn at the end. Sakazuki was very interested in this thing. Opening the backpack, he found that all the things drawn were in the backpack, and the same things could be stored in stacks, so he saw that there were 2 loyalty cards in the backpack, a senbei, and a bursting charm. I took out the bursting talisman directly. This thing is somewhat similar to the talisman. The dark yellow talisman paper is rectangular, about half the size of an ordinary adult's palm, with some patterns and incomprehensible characters painted on it, which looks very simple and mysterious. Blasting talisman. An explosion can occur in a small area. How to use it? Inject the force of magma, stick it to the target, and control the explosion within 5 minutes. After reading the prompts about the bursting charms given by the system, Sakazuki was amazed. Isn't this a small grenade? It just doesn't need gunpowder, but uses his own magma power to infuse it, just don't know how powerful it is. It's just that the power of magma is injected, which makes him feel a little strange. How to inject it? Turning his right hand into magma, and injecting it into this bursting charm, a scene that surprised him happened. The bursting charm appeared to be made of paper, but after it came into contact with magma hotter than fire, instead of being burned, it was absorbing his magma. After about 10 seconds, the explosive talisman no longer absorbs magma. Sakazuki immediately understood that the explosive talisman may have been completed. He wanted to test the power of this explosive talisman, but now he only has one. Is a little reluctant. But in the end he still couldn't hold back the curiosity in his heart, and he left the room and came to an empty place, and then stuck the explosive talisman on a wall. A scene that surprised him happened, when the bursting talisman was stuck on the wall, and it disappeared quickly, as if it didn't exist. But he could feel the bursting talisman there, and it did not disappear. The power was completely under his control, and he could detonate it at any time. Burst. There was a silent sound in my heart, followed by a bang, and I took out the wall to make a bang. Sparks appeared like a cannonball. The whole wall was blown apart, and rubble flew everywhere, revealing a chaotic room. Sakazuki looked at this scene in surprise. The power of this explosive talisman is really not bad. It is a bit stronger than the cannons in this world. The range is about 5 or 6 square meters. More importantly, the attacking god of the explosive talisman is unknown. The ghost is not aware of it. As long as it is attached to the target, it can detonate at any time within 5 minutes. Yes, this burst charm is really a good thing. It is very practical, but only one was drawn, and it is still used by me now, which is a shame. The power of the explosive talisman made him very satisfied. This thing is more powerful than the previous grenades, and more convenient. As long as the power of magma is injected, it is absolutely no disadvantage to ordinary people. Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Sakazuki turned his head and saw Lucas hurriedly running towards him. After running in front of him, Lucas asked with a grimace, "Sakazuki Vice Admiral, did I make you upset?" Sakazuki asked in astonishment, "Why do you ask? How can I be upset with you?" Lucas said, "Then why did you demolish my residence?" Every soldier in naval headquarters has a place to live in the base. Depending on their status, they live in different places. Of course, some people are outside the Marine base. Marineford also has a family on the island. Most of the time, they are on standby in the base. This is your residence. Sakazuki's face was immediately embarrassed when he heard it. He just found a place casually, but he didn't expect it to be Lucas's residence. It was all right now, and he was caught face to face. "Well, I think the place where you live is too rudimentary. You are also my personal soldier anyway. I am now a Marine Admiral candidate. How can you live in this kind of place? I tried new moves with it, etc. If you find someone to rebuild a room, it's my order." Can this work? Lucas was skeptical. Sakazuki stared, and said solemnly, "Why, do you think I will lie to you? See Circle Calendar 1500. This year is destined to be an important year written down in history, because the first generation of Pirate King in the sea will be punished publicly in this year." Early this morning, the naval headquarters dispatched 10 large warships and formed an astonishing formation. Starting from Marineford, they headed for Logtown vigorously. Because naval headquarters had already announced Roger's public execution, on this day, no matter who it was, dare not make trouble on the Grand Line. However, the naval headquarters fleet encountered a lot of ships while sailing. These ships are basically to watch the excitement, and do not dare to be too close to the naval headquarters warships. Ding. Successfully use the loyalty card on the target, and the target loyalty is improved. Among the 10 large warships of naval headquarters, on the 6th warship in the middle, the bored Sakazuki threw a loyalty card to Lucas in front of him. He did not expect it to succeed. This made him come all of a sudden. Up the spirit. Successful. Sakazuki was really surprised. At first, he was bored. He remembered that there were 2 loyalty cards in his backpack that were not used. After all, he thought that they were drawn by the system lottery, and all the burst charms drawn were like this. Power, this loyalty card shouldn't be so useless. So he took the attitude of giving it a try and used one against Lucas, but he didn't expect it to succeed. You must know that when he was in the Marine meeting before, he used it once against everyone, but not once. Success, now facing Lucas, he succeeded once, and there must be a different secret in this. Loyalty card, is it only useful for people who are already loyal to them? Lucas was his subordinate, and none of the people in the conference room that day were his subordinates, so it was unsuccessful, but it was successful now. The more he thought about it, the more he stood up, walked to the bow, and looked at the Marine Rear Admiral who was also standing on the bow. This person was also a Rear Admiral from Naval Headquarters, named Yuko, who was already 40. He's a lot of years old, and he has reached the top of his position, but because he is a veteran, he was selected into the team by Sengoku this time, which is considered a gift. This person belongs to Rear Admiral of the Sengoku family and has nothing to do with Sakazuki, so he used the loyalty card against this Yuko. Failed to use loyalty card. Sure enough, Sakazuki's eyes flashed a little, and it seemed that he was right. The loyalty card was invalid for other people. It was only valid for those who were loyal to him or used by his subordinates. So he used the loyalty card against the ghost spider again. Ding. Successfully used the loyalty card on the target, and the target loyalty is improved. It succeeded again and confirmed his conjecture again. Lucas and Ghost Spider are both his subordinates, so they succeeded in using the loyalty card. There is only one thing he doesn't understand. That is, the prompt is too simple. It only prompts the increase of loyalty. But how is loyalty calculated? Can the same person use the loyalty card multiple times? What is the upper limit? This question is somewhat similar to the previous enhancements of armament haki and observation haki, except that he does not have an extra loyalty card in his hand. Otherwise he can give it a try. Maybe after verifying this, he can infer the enhancements of those 2 hakis. What kind of improvement is it? Sakazuki Vice Admiral, Roger was brought out. Lucas suddenly walked up to Sakazuki, pointed to the 5th warship ahead, and said, Sakazuki turned his gaze to the 5th warship. Although the 2 warships were almost 100 meters apart, he still saw several tall figures on the deck of the 5th warship. He did not recognize Roger. Because he didn't inherit Sakazuki's memory, he didn't know what Roger was like. But Lucas obviously wouldn't lie to him, and seeing Sengoku and Garp around that figure, he didn't wear a marine coat or military uniform. He was obviously the prestigious pirate king, Roger. Is he Roger? Sakazuki silently thought in his heart that as a legend in the world of One Piece, as long as Roger's name appears, it will inevitably cause a huge sensation. Absolutely a big figure in the legend. Although Roger was about to be publicly executed and was about to die, Sakazuki still couldn't help but want to meet this legendary character. I'll get on that boat and have a look. Sakazuki gave orders to the ghost spiders, and then walked to the forefront. The 2 boats, the bow and the stern, were not very far apart, almost 20 meters away. If it were before the change, he would definitely not dare have other ideas. But now was different. He now has inhuman power. After several days of training and familiarity, he has gradually mastered part of the original body's power, so the distance of 20 meters is not too much for him. Big problem, not to mention the basic Marine 6 styles. Sakazuki is familiar with the most difficult things, but the simplest. Marine 6 styles is the basic martial art of Marine, so he exercised Marine 6 styles in the first place. I have to say that with this perfect body, the foundation is already there, so it's very quick after getting acquainted with it. With a leap, Sakazuki crossed a distance of 20 meters and jumped to the stern of the 5th warship. Sakazuki. Why are you here? Sengoku is the person in charge of this public execution. It stands to reason that Marshal Marine should have come here, but because the location of the public execution was in East Blue, it took a few days back and forth, so Sora did not have it this time. Come, but let Sengoku lead. I'll come and have a look. Sakazuki said this, but his gaze stayed on the bow, above the tall figure with hands and feet shackled. Is he Roger? I saw that although this man was shackled and dressed in sloppy clothes, his temperament was completely different from that of ordinary people. He stood there as the focal point, so although Sengoku and Garp were there, the surrounding Marines were still at all not daring to relax. All eyes are on him. Just let him out like that, okay? Sakazuki asked. This is not surprising. Roger is the most important criminal. It stands to reason that he should be imprisoned instead of letting him out as he is now. Ha ha ha, Garp laughed wildly. He patted his chest and said, Sakazuki, what are you worried about? I am here, let alone he has shackles. Even if there are no shackles, he can't escape. Hey, Garp, I'm still here, don't speak so loudly, okay? Hearing Garp was boasting there, Luo couldn't help but give him a blank look and retorted loudly. When treating Roger, Garp didn't mean to treat prisoners at all. Instead, he shouted like an old friend, Roger, why is my tone so loud? What I'm telling you is the truth. With me here, you can't escape. Roger shook his head. He was already familiar with Garp and knew what Garp's character was. Then he turned his head and looked at Sakazuki. This young man is the outstanding character of your new generation of Marine, called Sakazuki, right? Roger is one of the biggest pirates in the New World, the legendary pirate, and although Sakazuki is the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters, the representative of the new generation of Marine, he is actually not the pinnacle of the sea, so Roger is only against Sakazuki. I have some impressions, but I haven't actually seen it head-on. Sengoku said, yes, he is Sakazuki. Roger immediately looked at Sakazuki with interest. Although he looked very mad, his eyes were unusually bright. He stared at Sakazuki closely and asked, I heard that Golden Lions seem to be defeated because of you. When Roger was looking at Sakazuki, Sakazuki was also looking at Roger. Roger was a little different from the haki he had imagined. If it weren't for his outstanding temperament, he could only be said to be a decadent man from the looks of it. A man has become the pirate king who stirs the world. The Golden Lion was defeated by Sengoku Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral. It has nothing to do with me. Sakazuki wouldn't take credit for himself. The Golden Lion's defeat did not have anything to do with him. After a pause, he said again, as a prisoner about to be publicly executed, he can still talk and laugh like this, even as an enemy. Wow, haha. Before he could finish speaking, Roger suddenly burst into laughter and pointed to Sakazuki and said, you want to admire me, don't you? Ha ha ha, kid, you have a vision. Lousy is an invincible man across the sea. People who have passed me, there is no one who does not admire me, but you are not bad, I am very optimistic about you, wow ha ha ha. Sakazuki was confused by Roger's sudden laugh. Is this guy really the One Piece? It's too shameful. Fortunately, I was interrupted. Otherwise, it would be really shameful if I said admiration. Looking at Sengoku and Garp next to them, they were not surprised at all, as if they were used to Roger's appearance. Recalling the story of One Piece, Sakazuki remembers that Roger's character was mentioned in the anime. It was somewhat similar to the later protagonist Luffy, but because the name of One Piece was too big, everyone ignored it. One Piece Roger, himself his character is a funny comparison. You think too much. First I'm a Marine, you are a pirate. Do you think Marine who represents justice admire a pirate? Sakazuki said with a sneer. Justice Marine. Ha ha ha. Hearing Sakazuki's words, Roger froze for a moment, then couldn't help but laughed. His expression looked very exaggerated, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Sakazuki was ridiculed, not angry, just watched Roger so indifferently and laughed. After a while, Roger asked Sakazuki curiously, why don't you ask me what I am laughing at? Sakazuki asked back, a pirate laughed at Marine. Is there anything weird about this? Marine and the pirate have a hostile relationship. Even if it is a person like Roger, he is still a pirate. In his heart, he regards Roger as a pirate, so no matter how great Roger's ambitions are, he is the enemy. Two people with different views of justice laugh at each other. Why should he be surprised? Roger looked at Sakazuki in astonishment, and said, what a funny guy, you were right. The pirate laughs at Marine. It's really not strange, but this kind of thing, from the mouth of a young Marine like you, is still surprising. He turned his head and said to Sengoku and Garp, Sengoku, Garp, and Sakazuki kid, the guys of the world government, how lucky it is to have people like you all serve them. Sengoku and Garp did not speak. As the seniors of Marine, and they have lived for so many years, they naturally know much more about world government than ordinary people, and they also know the meaning of Roger's words. However, Sakazuki frowned and said, you are wrong. I don't know others, but my allegiance is not to those in your mouth. My allegiance is my own justice. Although he has only been in this world for a few days, he has not been affected by the original body, and naturally he will not be affected by this short-term contact with the world. As a country that comes from a republic and a free country, he cannot accept allegiance to others, not to mention that he, who has watched anime, has a very good understanding of the people in the world government. How can he really be loyal to such people? It's just that although he doesn't think that the group of people in the world government is great, he still has to admit that the role of the world government is still very large. If the world does not have the world government to check and balance the world still doesn't know it will become chaotic. What it looks like. Therefore, in his opinion, the existence of the world government has more advantages than disadvantages. Therefore, it is natural that there is no good feeling for people like Roger Ishin who wants to subvert the world government. Of course, the disgusting words cannot be said. After all, the world government is indeed dark. If there could be a better authority, that would be great, but it would be unacceptable for him to establish it by a pirate. Although some of the pirates in Vice Admiral of the anime preach very decent, but think about it, in addition to a few fools like Luffy, what kind of people are willing to become pirates? Ha ha ha, Roger laughed again. He looked at Sakazuki seriously and said, "Boy, you are the most interesting marine soldier I have ever seen. I hope you can do what you said and always stick to your own justice, whether it is right or not. Wrong, being able to uphold your own justice is a kind of greatness." His life can be described as magnificent, so he sees the world more thoroughly than others, and it is precisely because he has understood everything that he took the initiative to come to Naval headquarters to surrender. He wants his own life to create a new era. His behavior is also upholding its own justice. So after he heard Sakazuki's words, he actually had a feeling of sympathy. Although this is absurd, it is true. After meeting Roger, Sakazuki did not feel much touched. It may be because of the hostile relationship between the two sides. It may also be because he knew what Roger was doing. So even if he saw a real person with his own eyes, it didn't feel too much, of course. Or it may be that I have seen too many powerful people recently. For example, Sengoku, such as Garp, Sora, Crane Vice Admiral, etc. Each of these people is a big figure in Marine, especially Garp, whose name is no worse than Roger. What impresses him is Roger's temperament, but Haki is restrained, not like a big pirate who dominates New World, more like an ordinary person with some power, of course, and his funny personality is also very interesting. In addition, it is Roger's mentality. Anyone who knows that he will be publicly executed in the near future will certainly not be so indifferent, but Roger is like this, as if the person who will die as soon is not him, completely without paying attention, he was still able to maintain his previous style and chat and laugh with the enemy. I haven't seen your power, but with just a glance of understanding, I am worthy of the title of One Piece. Roger's title of One Piece is because he conquered the entire Grand Line and became the One Piece. It is not because he is the strongest and dominates New World. In terms of strength alone, there are a few people in New World who are not worse than Roger. For example, Whitebeard, for example, Golden Lion. But even so, it is undeniable that Roger's strength, the first pirate king in the sea, is unmatched by anyone. For pirates, the title of One Piece is absolutely supreme, but for Sakazuki, One Piece is still a pirate. When I watched One Piece before, it was okay at the beginning. Because the protagonist is a pirate, his sense of the pirate is higher than that of Marine. But as I grow older, my opinion is different. Even though Marine is ugly, compared with the big camp of pirates, there is too much justice. I didn't expect you to be able to talk so peacefully with a pirate, Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Sakazuki and Roger did not talk for long. After a few sentences, Roger was escorted back into the cabin by Sengoku and Garp, and then he stayed on the ship without returning to his warship. As he continued to think about the conversation with Roger, there was a sound of footsteps in his ears, and then a voice rang behind him. Looking back, I saw a young Marine in his 20s standing behind him. This man was also wearing a Marine Justice coat. Looking at his rank, he was actually a Marine Rear Admiral, and if he remembered correctly, this man stood before him. Behind Garp. Slightly frowned, the other party clearly knew him, but he didn't know him, so Sakazuki didn't dare to speak indiscriminately. It is naturally impossible for him to know all the people Sakazuki knew in a few days. In the past few days, he mainly remembered the people around him in the senior management above Marine Vice Admiral. As for this Marine Rear Admiral, he did not know it. Who? What? Sakazuki Vice Admiral doesn't remember me. The other party saw that Sakazuki did not speak. Obviously he was surprised, but he didn't think too much, and continued. I'm Monkey D. Dragon. My father is Garp, and Sakazuki Vice Admiral. We've met several times. It seems you didn't care about me, so I didn't think of it. After Sakazuki heard the words, there was no change on the surface, but his heart trembled like a river. It's amazing. The Marine Rear Admiral in front of me is actually Garp's son, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Long. Isn't Long the leader of the Revolutionary Army? How can first become Marine, and it is also Marine Rear Admiral? I am definitely looking forward to becoming Marine Rear Admiral at the age of more than 20 years. In the story of the pirates he knows, the dragon of the Revolutionary Army is definitely a very mysterious man. In addition to knowing that he is Garp's son, Luffy's father, and the leader of the Revolutionary Army, his experience, prosperity and ability it's an unknown number. But it is such a man who has become the most wanted criminal of the world government, which is enough to prove his horror. It is now 22 years ago before the plot. Long is actually a Rear Admiral of Marine. This is absolutely surprising. Although I don't know whether he became Marine voluntarily or forced by Garp, it can now be proved. One point is that the Revolutionary Army, which later made the world government most afraid of, has not yet been established. Face to face with such a future legend, even Sakazuki felt a lot of pressure. This pressure was even stronger than when he met Roger and Garp. Garp is Marine, a soldier with a strong belief, so Sakazuki gets along with him easily. While Roger, although he is the One Piece, he is in his twilight years and is about to die soon, so his heart is shaken, but he doesn't feel pressure. But the dragon in front of him, who was only in his 20s, made him feel tremendous pressure, because he knew how terrifying the future of this man was. Even to put it in a non-exaggerated way, he was even higher than his original achievements, and it is also very mysterious, so naturally made him very afraid. There should be no intersection between us. What do you want to tell me? From Monkey D. Dragon's words, Sakazuki also heard some information, that is, although the dragon and him know each other, they are not familiar with each other, so the dragon does not care much about his reaction. Although he was facing Sakazuki, who had a higher rank than his own, the dragon was not at all nervous, and said equally, I am very interested in your attitude and words of Sakazuki Vice Admiral.
Oh, Sakazuki replied noncommittently, no matter what the other party's future is, at least it is Marine now and Garp's son, so he can't show hostility, and asks indifferently, my attitude. Is this weird? What is Roger? In this way, he is just a dying person. After a person dies, all sins will disappear. Why should I be hostile to him?
Long said in surprise. This is not like your previous style. Although you don't know me well, I know about you. You never show mercy to pirates. Now you actually say such things. Isn't it wrong? Sakazuki snorted and said, what's wrong? I never feel soft when dealing with pirates. On the contrary, you are very strange, and you are actually interested in what I say. Now you are telling me these things that don't make much sense. What is your purpose? Long looked at Sakazuki earnestly and said, I'm just curious. You just said that you don't seem to respect the world government. I agree with allegiance to his justice. Sakazuki's mouth suddenly smiled. Long looked at Sakazuki in amazement. It was really the first time he saw Sakazuki's smile. He believed that it was not just him. I am afraid that even in Marine, I can see Sakazuki's smile. Count it with all hands. What are you laughing at? Long asked puzzledly. Sakazuki said, I'm laughing at you. When you say this, do you agree with me, or do you agree with yourself? What do you mean? Long frowned, looking at Sakazuki with some caution. Sakazuki said, Dragon, although you are the son of Garp Vice Admiral, you are completely different. Why do you say that? Long asked. Sakazuki said, feeling. Feeling? Long Hahe smiled. I haven't found out before that you are such an interesting person. Sakazuki shrugged, then turned and left. To be honest, he didn't want to have too much intersection with the dragon. Although he only had a few conversations, he already felt that the dragon's worldview was not the same as that of him. Sooner or later as a matter of time. Looking at Sakazuki's back, the dragon's eyes flickered. Today's Sakazuki gave him a completely different impression. He always felt that the other party was suggesting something and also avoiding him. This made him very puzzled. There seemed to be nothing between them. What gap? From the first half of the Grand Line to East Blue, there are two roads, one is to cross the Red Line and the other is to cross the Calm Belt. Under normal circumstances, ships choose to cross the Red Line, but Marine has special technology. A warship built with seastone, so they chose to pass through the Calm Belt and directly enter East Blue. But even after taking a shortcut, from Marineford to Logue Town, I sailed on the sea for a whole day and night. When the warships arrived in Logue Town, it was already the early morning of the next day, and at this time there were still 4 hours before Roger's public execution. Because Roger's public executions have spread all over the world, Logue Town, an ordinary East Blue town, seems to have become the center of the world at this time. Countless people gathered here from all over the world, making Logue Town suddenly changed. It has to be crowded. The name of One Piece is too big. There are many media reporters from all over the world alone, plus the pirates who come here secretly, and the people who admire Roger. There are not tens of thousands, and at least a few thousand. In order to prevent accidents from happening, the entire Marine branch of East Blue gathered together and sent a full 10,000 Marines to guard Logue Town. All the traffic arteries in Logue Town are covered with Marine. Everyone has to enter Logue Town. Except strict inspections. When the 10 naval headquarters of naval headquarters arrived in Logue Town, the whole Logue Town was a sensation. Countless people wanted to go to watch, but they were all stopped by the Marine of Logue Town. The public execution has not yet started, so no accidents can happen. Sakazuki took the ghost spiders and followed the naval headquarters to the Marine branch of Logue Town. This time, the naval headquarters came to 3,000 people, led by Marine Admiral Sengoku. The lineup was extremely luxurious. plus the Town, the 10,000 Marines that were temporarily mobilized. Even if the big pirates of New World came, it would definitely not cause trouble. The reason for sending such a luxurious lineup is mainly because of the fear that the pirates of the Roger Pirates will come to rescue. Although the Roger Pirate Group has been disbanded, Roger, as the captain, will be publicly executed. Who knows if those brave people will come to the rescue? Although there are not many people in the Roger Pirate Group, all of them are amazing. If they were to make trouble together, it would be time for the people from Naval headquarters to go out. 3 hours passed in a blink of an eye, and finally it was time for public execution. Public execution is sacred to Marine. It is determined when and when it is set. There are few cases of early execution like the war. At the time, Sengoku also ordered the cancellation of the live broadcast, just not to let people know their plans. This time, the public execution was grand, and there was no pressure from the war, so Naval headquarters was naturally impossible to execute the sentence in advance, but when there was half an hour before the execution, Roger was pressed by a group of Marine soldiers to go to the public execution square. As early as a few hours ago, countless people had gathered in the square where the execution was public. Everyone knew that the place of execution was in this square, and everyone was afraid that they would have no place, so they came here early. When Roger was escorted to the square was already overcrowded. The Marines finally opened a passage leading to the execution platform. On both sides stood countless Marine soldiers, who controlled the people around them and prevented them from letting them near. Under everyone's gaze, I saw a tall man with his hands and feet locked in shackles being taken over. The square that was originally noisy suddenly became quiet when this man appeared. Everyone was stunned, looked at the man blankly. Roger smiled at the corner of his mouth and walked forward, not like a criminal at all, as if he was a king patrolling his territory, his eyes stunned, and his whole body exuded a shocking haki, with every step he took. A kind of momentum, so that everyone's eyes are focused on him. Roger's mood at this time is indeed very good, especially seeing so many people around the square to see his public execution. He is even more happy. Today will be the most important moment in his life, and he will stay there. At this time, make an important stroke in this world. His eyes scanned the surroundings. At this moment, he saw countless different eyes. Some were scared, some were excited, some were pleasantly surprised, and some were sentimental. Everyone's eyes were different, but they were all seen by him, clearly. The seastone shackles can block his power, but he can't block his eyes. As a man who has trained observation haki to ultimate, he can clearly feel the psychology of most people. His gaze stayed in one place for a moment. He saw an acquaintance, but he quickly turned his head calmly and continued to look in other directions. He saw many young people, all of whom had hot gazes. Looking at him, he knew from the eyes of these people that these people would be on his way, so he was very pleased. Suddenly, he saw a familiar straw hat, and his expression became happier. He gave that straw hat to his most optimistic junior. He believed that Shanks would not let down his expectations, and would definitely take his will handed down. It's not a long passage, but it took 10 minutes to walk. Roger's performance surprised many people who watched the excitement. He was about to be publicly executed, and he was able to laugh. It was really shocking.